Chapter 540. This Jewel King beast. Gray's eyebrows furrowed, and there was a hint of disappointment in his eyes. The blood fiend in front of him was indeed larger than the Jewel King beast, but it was only about 10 meters long. Compared to a normal king beast, it was undoubtedly smaller. This should be a Jewel King beast that hasn't matured yet. Gray sighed. This was indeed a Jewel King beast, but it wasn't the kind of Jewel King beast that he was looking for. This was because this was a Jewel King beast that hadn't matured to the level of a king yet. The Jewel King beast that he was looking for had to be an adult one. This was because only by consuming the blood of an adult Jewel King beast would he be able to obtain the abilities and characteristics of a king beast. That's not right. Maybe I've been thinking wrongly all this time. Suddenly, Gray's heart skipped a beat, and a strange look flashed across his face. His metamorphosis ability had two characteristics. One of them was that after consuming the blood of a blood fiend, he would be able to obtain the corresponding blood fiend's bloodline. The other characteristic was that he could record and back up the strength of the blood fiend's characteristics and rapidly grow towards that strength. For example, if he consumed the blood of a king-level blood fiend, the strength of his characteristics would rapidly approach that of a king-level blood fiend. To the outside world, his strength would rapidly increase until the strength of his characteristics was comparable to that of a king-level blood fiend. In other words, his realm would reach the level of a king-level blood fiend. He called this state the second metamorphosis state. It was this second metamorphosis state that allowed him to improve at a speed comparable to that of Francis, Nicholas Blaze, and other members of the royal family, even though his cultivation talent wasn't at its peak and he was severely lacking in cultivation resources. This is a misunderstanding. Because of his second metamorphosis, Gray would always choose the blood of an adult blood fiend when he was choosing blood fiends. This also caused him to fall into a misunderstanding. The blood of a Jewel King beast wouldn't allow him to obtain the strength of an adult blood fiend's characteristics, but in terms of bloodline, the blood of a Jewel King beast was the same as that of an adult blood fiend. The bloodline obtained by consuming the blood of an immature blood fiend was the same as the bloodline obtained by consuming the blood of an adult blood fiend. The characteristic of the bloodline was that it would display the strength of the bloodline's characteristics according to the level of the bloodline's realm. If he consumed the blood of this immature Gemstone King beast and obtained the bloodline of the Gemstone King beast, when he reached the King Beast level, according to common sense, he would naturally display the strength of an adult Gemstone King beast. In other words, he would have all the abilities of an adult Gemstone King beast. It's not absolute. After all, the way I obtain my bloodline is different from others. It's hard to guarantee that there won't be a difference between the two. Gray's method of implanting his bloodline was merely to consume the blood of the corresponding blood fiend. The other blood warrior's method of implanting their bloodline was to combine medicine with blood essence. The two methods of implanting their bloodline were completely different. Gray was not sure if the bloodline obtained by different methods of implantation would be the same. However, similarities and differences could lead to two different results. If they were the same, then the effect of Gray consuming the blood of an immature Gemstone King beast would be the same as consuming the blood of an adult Gemstone King beast. If they were different and the bloodline obtained by Gray was limited to the realm of the immature Gemstone King beast when it died, then the strength of the characteristics of the Gemstone King beast obtained by Gray would at most be equivalent to that of an immature Gemstone King beast. I'll have to test it before I know what it is. Gray naturally hoped that the bloodline obtained by consuming the blood would be the same as the bloodline obtained through the normal method of implantation. In this way, when he searched for blood fiends in the future, he would not need to use the blood of an adult blood fiend. The difficulty of obtaining blood fiends would undoubtedly be reduced. Of course, he would have to wait until the next time he swallowed the blood. Only then would he know what the situation was. Woo! While Gray was thinking about this, the immature Gemstone King beast facing off against Gray was enraged. It roared and attacked Gray. Streaks of khaki-colored sharp blades quickly attacked Gray. Gray waved his hand, and countless wind blades appeared, instantly shattering all the khaki-colored sharp blades. The khaki-colored sharp blades were not weak. They were enough to reach level 3 of the Desolation level. However, it was a pity that it was facing Gray. Although they were both at level 3 of the Desolation level, Gray's combat strength was several levels higher. Let's kill this immature Gemstone King Beast first. After making up his mind, Gray pounced on the Gemstone King Beast. Whoosh! With the speed of a level 1 King Beast, Gray appeared beside the immature Gemstone King Beast. His sword-shaped silver weapon was wrapped in black mist as he slashed at the immature Gemstone King Beast's throat. Puff! The immature Gemstone King Beast tried to dodge, but failed. Blood spurted out from its throat. Gray dodged the blood and waited for the immature Gemstone King Beast to die. After a few struggles, the immature Gemstone King Beast died. Gray went forward to collect the blood and the corpse of the immature Gemstone King Beast. I've been out for almost a month. It's time to return to the cemetery. Without any intention of looking for the immature Gemstone King Beast, Gray set off for the cemetery. According to the time, the deciphering of the rune mechanism in the cemetery should have reached the end. If there was a chance to enter such a cemetery, Gray naturally did not want to miss it. A day later, Gray returned to the cemetery. How is it? How far have you deciphered the rune mechanism? After finding Francis and Sophia, Gray asked them. The progress is slower than expected. Based on the current progress, it will take at least a month. Sophia frowned slightly. It actually takes that long? Gray was slightly surprised. This time was twice as long as what he had estimated. After all, it's a rune mechanism from the Empire. The standard of runes is much higher than the current 4 kingdoms. It's already pretty good to have such a deciphering speed. Francis smiled bitterly. Let's hope the things inside are really that valuable. Otherwise, the Purple Moon Kingdom will suffer a great loss this time. There should be a lot of good stuff in a cemetery like this. Gray said uncertainly. Let's hope so. Francis shrugged and asked Gray, how's your trip this time? Gray did not say what he was going to do this time, and he did not ask. After all, everyone had their own secrets. However, he could guess that Gray was definitely going for some purpose. It's all right, but I ran into quite a bit of trouble, Gray said solemnly. Quite a bit of trouble? Sophia and Francis looked at Gray in confusion. Gray took out his rune portal bag, took out the corpse of King of Assassins Theodore, and placed it on the ground of the tent. King of Assassins Theodore? Sophia and Francis were shocked at first, and then they looked at Gray in shock. They looked at Gray as if they were looking at a monster. Combined with the corpse of King of Assassins Theodore and the trouble Gray mentioned, they could roughly guess that he had been assassinated by King of Assassins Theodore. It was not that they did not think that Gray would be assassinated during this trip, but considering that Gray had a spatial teleportation magic weapon, even if he was assassinated, he should be able to escape. Thus, they were not too worried. However, what surprised them was that Gray, who had been assassinated, had actually killed King of Assassins Theodore. This shocked them. King of Assassins Theodore was a genuine king rank expert that had undergone one metamorphosis. If Gray had the ability to kill him, then just how strong was Gray right now? They originally thought that the battle with Niklos Blaze was already Gray's strongest fighting strength, but they did not expect that Gray was still hiding such powerful fighting strength. He was actually able to kill King of Assassins Theodore. News of Gray's return quickly spread to the Flame Kingdom. How could this be? How could Gray Fergus come back alive? The Flame Kingdom disciples who knew of the assassination plan against Gray were shocked. Where's King of Assassins Theodore? Gray has returned. Where did the one who assassinated Gray go? The Flame Kingdom disciples who knew of the plan were puzzled. I'm afraid he's already dead. Niklos Blaze's expression was gloomy. King of Assassins Theodore had not returned for nearly a month, and he had not contacted him either. He had already felt that something was wrong. Now that Gray had returned, his bad premonition was confirmed. King of Assassins Theodore might have failed his assassination and been killed instead. We've been tricked. The Purple Moon Kingdom must have arranged for Gray Fergus's departure to lure our Flame Kingdom into action. He clenched his fists tightly automatically filling in the details of the entire matter. In his opinion, although Gray was stronger than him by relying on two king-rank blood fiends, it was still impossible for him to be a match for King of Assassins Theodore, who was at the second stage of the king rank. Therefore, the one who had killed King of Assassins Theodore was someone else. And the only one who had the strength and would do so was the Purple Moon Kingdom's royal family. Gray did not leave the graveyard in the following period of time. The matter of King of Assassins Theodore must have infuriated the Flame Kingdom. After all, they had lost a king-rank powerhouse. Even the Flame Kingdom did not have many king-rank powerhouses. Moreover, the one who had died this time was not an ordinary king-rank powerhouse, but a king-rank powerhouse who had undergone a metamorphosis. If he left again, the Flame Kingdom would go crazy and send the thrice-transformed Blair Blaze to assassinate him. A month later, under the deciphering of more than 20 rune masters, a large number of rune patterns appeared and disappeared on the surface of the huge graveyard. They flickered incessantly, accompanied by intense flashes of white light, like electrical sparks that had short-circuited. Finally, at a certain moment, all the flickering talisman markings vanished, and all the abnormalities vanished as well. The graveyard became calm, and it seemed like an extremely ordinary graveyard. The only difference was that the materials used were rather special. All the rune mechanisms in the graveyard had been deciphered. Chapter 541. Success. It's a success. Seeing this, the people from the four kingdoms who had been watching could not help but be excited. After 2 months, the rune mechanism of this tomb had finally been cracked. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Almost at the same time, the kings from the four kingdoms rushed out from the crowd and appeared in the center of the tomb, faintly forming a confrontation. Among them, the Purple Moon, Scarlet, and Gem kingdoms were on one side, and the Flame Kingdom was on the other. Although the four kingdoms were forced to work together because they needed to break the rune mechanism, the moment the rune mechanism was broken, this fragile alliance had already collapsed. Blair, what do you mean by this? Does the Flame Kingdom want to take all the benefits for itself? Diphony Violet snorted coldly. Ridiculous. I want to ask you what the three kingdoms mean by this. I think it's the three kingdoms that want to exclude the Flame Kingdom, right? Blair Blaze also snorted coldly in response. The two sides faced each other, and the atmosphere became tense. Terrifying pressure spread from both sides, and the people from the four kingdoms who felt it in the distance could not help but step back. The pressure of so many kings erupting at the same time was terrifying. Well, it's so lively. Let's join in. At this moment, a voice suddenly sounded, and then 4 people broke through the air and landed in the center of the tomb. To be able to walk on air, these 4 people were all king-level powerhouses. It's her. Among the 4, one of them was a beautiful woman with a beauty mark at the corner of her mouth. When Gray saw this person, he immediately understood the identities of these 4 people. They should be the king-class experts who were known as the 5th power outside of the 4 great kingdoms. The reason for appearing here was obvious. Obviously, they also wanted to enter the tomb. Gray guessed that these 4 people had been secretly watching for a long time, and only took the initiative to appear when they saw the rune mechanism of the tomb being cracked. You dare to appear in front of us. Seeing these 4 people appear, the 4 kingdoms were furious, and they all looked at the 4 with unfriendly eyes. It wasn't just because the 4 of them had infiltrated the treasure vaults of the 4 kingdoms, but also because of what they had done over the past year. Over the past year or so, the 4 of them had been unbridled in the 4 kingdoms, plundering and robbing everywhere. Wherever there was good stuff, the 4 of them would appear there. The number of noble clans that the 4 of them had plundered was not small. Even the members of the 4 kingdoms' royal families had been plundered by the 4 of them. The 4 of them were like a swarm of locusts passing through. As long as they saw something good, they would snatch it. Their actions completely enraged the 4 kingdoms. However, the 4 of them were not only adept at concealing their tracks, but they also possessed powerful defenses. The king-level powerhouses of the royal families of the 4 kingdoms had encountered the 4 of them before, but they had all easily escaped. Why not? Among the 4 people, A man in yellow clothes and a yellow mask said with a hint of disdain in his voice. Good, very good. Blair Blaze's face was filled with anger. Like an angry lion, he instantly closed in on a yellow-masked man. The spear in his hand had a blazing golden flame entwined around it. It was an extremely compressed flame. Although the commotion was not as great as Nicholas Blaze's battle with Gray, its power was several levels higher. Just a spark was enough to start a prairie fire. This was an attack that condensed the power of a thrice metamorphosed peak king-level fighter. The spear pierced towards the yellow-masked man's chest. Whoosh! Just as the spear was about to pierce the yellow-masked man, a long saber appeared in his hand. Wisps of cold air emanated from the saber as he chopped towards the tip of the spear. Clang! The tip of the spear and the blade collided. Flames and cold air intertwined, and a terrifying invisible shockwave rippled out. Because the interior of the tomb was reinforced by rune mechanisms, it was not damaged. However, the surroundings of the tomb were devastated. Cracks appeared on the ground one after another, and the surging air was like the edge of a saber. People from the four great kingdoms were brushed by this air, and huge wounds appeared on their bodies as they were sent flying. Just a little bit of the aftermath was enough to make anyone below the king level unable to resist. One could imagine the power of the two people's attacks. Clang, clang, clang. Gray released the demonic sound King Beast and turned it into a wall in front of him. Sophia, Francis, and the others, blocking the fierce aftermath. Pa, pa, pa. After the exchange of blows, the yellow-masked man could not help but retreat. He even retreated into the air. After a few emergency breaks in the void, he stabilized his body and landed. After forcing the yellow-masked man to retreat with one blow, Blair Blaze's expression was a little ugly. There was a trace of seriousness in his voice. You have already undergone thrice metamorphosis. It was this man who had snuck into the Flame Kingdom's palace and attempted to steal from the Flame Kingdom's treasury. That was why Blair Blaze had attacked him. At that time, although his opponent was strong, he was obviously weaker than Blair Blaze. He was a twice metamorphosis king, which was the third stage of the king level. If not for his strong defense, he would not have been able to escape. But now, the other party had become a thrice metamorphosis king level. His strength had reached the fourth stage of the king level. Coupled with his strong defense, the threat he posed was actually greater than the thrice metamorphosis king-level fighters from the three kingdoms. A thrice metamorphosis king-level martial artist? Looking at the yellow-masked man who, although at a disadvantage, had obviously blocked Blair Blaze's attack, the four king-level experts of the Purple Moon, Scarlet, Gem, and Flame Kingdom could not help but change their expressions. The fifth force had actually produced a thrice metamorphosis king. To some extent, they could already compete with their kingdoms. Coupled with their strong defense, any kingdom would have a headache facing them. The fifth force has really become the fifth force that can compete with the kingdoms this time. After Main King Beast, Gray and the others could not help but look solemn. When the four of them had first appeared, the four kingdoms and four families could still barely maintain their dominance. But now, they had no choice but to join the fifth force. Now, the fifth force had the strength to compete with the kingdoms. In the future, the four kingdoms would have to seriously consider how to deal with the fifth force. This was the power of a thrice metamorphosis king. As long as they had one, their foundation would be comparable to a kingdom. Although it was still slightly weaker, it would still be on the same level. Good place. An entire black jade tomb. There must be a lot of good things in such a tomb. Returning to the center of the tomb, the yellow-masked man looked at the tomb and exclaimed in surprise. The rune mechanism of this tomb was cracked by the four kingdoms. You're not qualified to enter. In the Jewel Kingdom, the thrice metamorphosis king Jennifer Austin said in a deep voice. That's right. You're not qualified to enter this tomb. In the Purple Moon Kingdom, the thrice metamorphosis Diphony Violet also said in a deep voice. That's not up to you. The yellow-masked man chuckled and suddenly stomped on the ground. Crack! Under his stomp, the black jade floor under his feet suddenly cracked, revealing a tunnel that was large enough for several people to pass through. There were stairs leading down. The stairs leading down to the tomb were actually under his feet. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. The yellow-masked man and the other three quickly rushed into the tunnel and rushed into the depths of the tunnel. Not good. The expressions of the four king-level powerhouses changed. They did not expect to be tricked by the other party. They all rushed into the tunnel and chased after the yellow-masked man. Quick, let's follow. Gray put away the demonic Note King beast and quickly rushed into the tunnel leading to the tomb with Francis and Sophia. Like the three of them, there were other people from the four kingdoms. Taking out simple rune lamps, they jumped into the tunnel. Following the tunnel, Gray and the others came to a room with black jade walls, ceiling, and pillars. From the furnishings, this should be a hall. There was a door on each of the three sides of the wall, corresponding to the three entrances. Without much hesitation, Gray and the others chose the rightmost door and rushed in. Before them, there should have been king-level powerhouses who had entered, so there was no need to be too worried about the safety of the rooms behind these doors. Entering this door, Gray and the others found that they had entered a room that looked like a restaurant. In the middle of the room, there was a long dining table with several benches around it. Whether it was the dining table or the benches, they were all carved out of black jade. Even though an extremely long time had passed, they were still not damaged, only covered with dust. Above their heads, there was a huge and exquisite rune lamp made of 3 sets of rune lamps connected together. It looked very beautiful, but because the magic crystals had been exhausted, it could no longer be activated. How did the fifth force find the entrance to the tunnel? Gray asked curiously as he searched for valuable items in the room. This time, the four kingdoms could be said to have been tricked by the fifth force. They had spent a full 2 months painstakingly deciphering the rune mechanism. In the end, they did not expect that the fifth force would be the first to enter the tomb and gain the upper hand. He had not expected that the fifth force would be the first to enter. The fifth force seemed to have known where the entrance to the tomb was long ago. It was as if their understanding of the tomb was even greater than that of the four kingdoms. They should have some method to explore the structure of the tomb. Sophia said with certainty. The last time someone infiltrated the palace, they went straight to the royal treasury after entering the palace. They even know where the entrance to the treasury is, so it's impossible for the information to be leaked. The only explanation is that they have some kind of method to investigate the structure of the building. Chapter 542. After a quick search, Gray and the others finally found more than 10 bottles of wine. Although they had been stored for thousands of years, they could still see the color of the wine because they had been sealed and preserved well. The three of them divided up the bottles of wine, then chose one of the doors that connected to the room and walked into another room. This was a room that looked like a lounge. There was a coffee table and wooden chairs in the room. The wood was made of red sandalwood, but it had been treated in some way. Even after thousands of years, it was still in good condition and did not decay. Sophia and Francis were not very interested in this kind of furniture. Gray took it all without hesitation. After all, the purple ring had a large space, so there was no need to worry about it being filled. The three of them searched along the way and more or less found something, but it was not very big. They did not know if it was because the previous rooms had already been visited or if there was nothing valuable in these rooms to begin with. This should be a bedroom. They entered another room. This was a room with a bed and a wardrobe. It should be a bedroom. Gray opened the wardrobe and found several sets of clothes in it. However, they were all rotten and turned to ashes with a light touch. The wardrobe was also made of red sandalwood. Although it had not decayed for thousands of years, Gray put the wardrobe away. There's a blood spell book here. Sophia was rummaging through the drawers of the bedside table. When she opened one of the drawers, she suddenly found a leather book. After flipping through it, she found that it was a blood spell book. Gray and Francis came forward to take a look. They found that it was a blood spell book for the poisonous lizard sequence. There were blood spells from the murderous level to the magic light level. It was very comprehensive. I'll make a copy for you when we get back. After saying this, Sophia put the blood spell book away. Gray did not mind. After all, he already had a blood spell book that reached the magic light level. He did not care too much about this blood spell book. At most, he would use it to enrich the Fergus family's blood spell foundation. The three of them once again searched the room. Gray opened a drawer of a table by the wall. In the drawer, there were 3 bottles of refined gold potions neatly arranged. Blood Dragon Potion. Gray took out a bottle and looked at the name on it. He did not recognize this potion, so he called out to Francis and Sophia. "Come take a look. What potion is this?" Hearing Gray's greeting, Francis and Sophia walked over and took it from Gray's hands. When they saw the names on it, they couldn't help but be slightly delighted. This is good stuff. It's a potion that can increase one's strength. It's several times more potent than the Purple Moon Potion. Because the potion is so potent, it's usually only used by kings and above. However, the method of making this potion has been lost since the time of the Empire. Francis explained. The 3 of them each took a bottle and once again searched the entire room. They did not find anything good. The 3 of them left the room and walked forward. In front of them, a staircase appeared that led underground. Clearly, this tomb did not only have 1 floor. It was probably divided into several floors. The 3 of them went down the stairs and entered a large hall. This hall was even more luxurious than the one on the first floor. There were many metal decorations and decorative lights in the hall. There was even a small fountain. It should have been extremely beautiful in the past. Unfortunately, so much time had passed that the decorations in the hall were covered in dust. The small fountain had also stopped flowing due to the exhaustion of magic crystals. Wait a moment. Gray and Francis were about to leave the room when Sophia stopped them. What's wrong? Gray and Francis looked at Sophia in confusion, not understanding what she meant. Look at those metal decorations, Sophia reminded. After receiving Sophia's hint, Gray and Francis couldn't help but feel moved. They quickly stepped forward, wiped the dust off a metal ornament, and sized it up. This was a kind of iridescent metal. There were many colors on the surface, forming a rainbow pattern. It was very beautiful. Gray hadn't reacted yet. He didn't know much about metals, but Francis had already reacted and exclaimed in surprise. This is iridescent gold. Iridescent gold? Is this metal very precious? Gray was puzzled. He did not know much about metals. This is an extremely precious metal. It has extremely high toughness and hardness. It is an excellent material for forging silver weapons. Sophia explained. This is red copper. This is star iron. After Francis and Sophia's inspection, they discovered that all the metal decorations in the hall were made of precious metals that could be used to forge silver weapons. There were so many of them that it was enough to forge a dozen silver weapons. However, they were used so extravagantly as decorations. It was clear that the tomb owner was very wealthy. The 3 of them were like locusts passing through, dividing all the metal decorations equally. Although they did not obtain a silver tier weapon, they did obtain the materials needed to craft a silver tier weapon. Moreover, each of them had obtained enough materials to craft several silver tier weapons. If they could find a suitable master blacksmith, their final harvest would definitely not be inferior to a silver tier weapon. The 3 of them were satisfied and prepared to leave the hall. Rumble, rumble, rumble. Suddenly, loud sounds of battle rang out. The hall they were in trembled violently. The sound were very close, as if they were fighting just a wall away. Fortunately, the tomb had been reinforced by runic mechanisms. Otherwise, the walls would have been penetrated and the shock waves would have reached them. There are king-level experts fighting. The 3 of them could not help but change their expressions. This was clearly the sound of king-level experts fighting. They might have found something good and started fighting over it. The sound came from the left. Let's go and take a look. The 3 of them rushed in the direction of sound. After passing through a few rooms, they hid in a room and quickly saw the 2 sides fighting. One side was from the Flame Kingdom. There were 3 of them in total. One of them was Niklos Blaze. The other 2 were seen in the Flame Kingdom's team. At this time, the strength they displayed was all at the king level. Clearly, all 3 of them were king-level warriors. The other side was a woman in white. She had a curvy figure and a beauty mark at the corner of her mouth. She was full of charm. At this time, she was facing 3 king-level warriors from the Flame Kingdom. She was very calm. In front of her, there was a golden blade without a handle. It emitted golden shadows and easily suppressed the 3 of them. Is this the woman from the fifth power that you fought last time? Sophia asked. Yes, it's her. But her strength is stronger than before. She should have reached the second level of the king level. Gray nodded. To be able to easily suppress 3 king-level warriors, her strength was not as simple as an ordinary king level. It was obvious that her strength had increased in the past 6 months and reached the second level of the king level. Her strength has increased? Francis frowned. What's wrong? Gray and Sophia looked at him in confusion. Nothing. I just feel that something is wrong, but I can't tell what it is. Francis shook his head. He felt that something was wrong, but he could not tell what it was. Hand over the thing, the woman said coldly in a gap in the battle. Impossible. The thing in the tomb belongs to whoever gets it. Nicholas Blaze said angrily. You really think I don't dare to kill you? The woman's face turned cold. As if responding to her mood, the golden blade in front of her suddenly emitted a golden light. Then, even more dazzling golden shadows attacked Nicholas Blaze and the other 2. Boom, boom. The dazzling golden shadows were obviously stronger. Every time they blocked a golden shadow, Nicholas Blaze and the other 2 could not help but be pushed back. Pu. Facing the powerful golden shadows, Nicholas Blaze and the other 2 could no longer block them. They were brushed by a golden shadow, and a wound appeared on each of their bodies. Drops of red blood dripped from their wounds to the ground. Although the 3 of them were not seriously injured, they were not light injuries either. I'll say it again. Hand it over. The woman said coldly. Here. Nicholas Blaze's face flashed with anger, but in the end, he took out an item from his rune portal bag. It was a silver-white bow. The body of the bow seemed to be made of silver. There were some green veins on the surface, and the bowstring was made of golden thread. The bow was exquisite like a work of art. It did not look like a weapon, but more like a collector's item. I'm afraid this is an alternative silver weapon. Looking at the bow, Gray judged inwardly. Whoosh! Nicholas Blaze glanced around the room, then threw the silver metal bow towards one of the doors, and finally threw it into the room. Seeing the bow being thrown into the room, the woman hurriedly chased after it. Nicholas Blaze glared at the woman and said, Let's go. The reason why he threw the bow into the room was to buy time to escape. He did not trust the woman, and it was impossible for him to put his life in her hands. Therefore, even if he wanted to escape, he had to buy time to escape. Whoosh! Nicholas Blaze and the other 2 quickly rushed towards the door. At this time, whoosh! A giant blade of compressed black mist attacked Nicholas Blaze and the other 2 who were preparing to escape. The one who attacked was Gray. Seeing Nicholas Blaze and the other 2 alone, he was immediately filled with murderous intent. The Flame Kingdom had sent people to kill him. How could he be afraid of angering the Flame Kingdom after killing the 3? Therefore, he brazenly attacked. Of course, before he attacked, he also considered whether to snatch the silver weapon or to kill Nicholas Blaze and the other 2. Considering that the woman in white had reached the second stage of the king stage in all aspects, and her almost unbreakable defense, he did not have much confidence in snatching the silver weapon. Therefore, he chose to kill Nicholas Blaze and the other 2. Chapter 543. Whoosh! The terrifying black mist blade quickly slashed towards Nicholas Blaze and the other 2, creating a strong gust of wind in the room. The strong gust of wind made one's hair stand on end. One could imagine the power of this attack. Not good. Sensing the movement behind them, Nicholas Blaze and the other 2, who were running towards the exit of the room, suddenly changed their expressions. Just by listening to the movement, they could already feel that the attack was extremely powerful. At this moment, Nicholas Blaze suddenly turned around, and the aura on his body suddenly surged. Whoosh whoosh, the golden flames on the golden spear sword, and the tip of the spear was scorching hot. The spear pierced the black giant blade. Crack! Under this spear, the black giant blade shattered, and a violent roar sounded in the room. To be able to shatter the black giant blade, which had the power of a second-stage king, Nicholas Blaze's spear had the power of a second-stage king as well. Gray Fergus, it's you. After shattering the black giant blade, Niklos Blaze had the time to look in the direction of the black giant blade. When he saw that it was gray, shock and astonishment flashed across his face. The power of the attack just now was clearly at the second stage king level. He had only been able to block it after using his blood skill. However, such an attack came from Grey Fergus. Didn't it mean that Grey Fergus's combat power was at the second stage king level? Is it strange that I'm here? Grey sneered. You're the one who killed the king of assassins. Niklos Blaze's eyes narrowed, and he looked at Grey solemnly. Considering the combat power that Grey had displayed, he looked at Grey solemnly. The reason why he guessed that the king of assassins had been ambushed by the Purple Moon Kingdom and died was because he was sure that Grey did not have the ability to kill the king of assassins. However, with the power that Grey had displayed, it was obviously possible for him to kill the king of assassins. If you think so, then so be it. Grey did not admit or deny it. In the next moment, he swiftly slashed out with his sword, and the black mist turned into a giant blade. With a strong gust of wind, he slashed towards Niklos Blaze. Hoo-hoo! Niklos Blaze's expression was grave. The golden flames on his spear emitted a terrifyingly high temperature as he once again thrust his spear towards the giant black blade. Crack! The giant black blade shattered, and the golden flames dissipated. Niklos Blaze was forced back a few steps, but he had once again blocked Grey's second stage king level attack. To be able to use blood skills consecutively, Niklos Blaze must have mastered a complete blood skill. Grey narrowed his eyes. Grey had suspected that Niklos Blaze might have a complete blood skill when he was in the Endless Ice Fields. Now, his guess was confirmed. Niklos Blaze's abilities were naturally not at Stage 2 Monarch level. The only way he could unleash Stage 2 Monarch level abilities in such a short period of time was if he had used a complete blood skill that cost him very little. I'll have to wait until Niklos Blaze's blood force is exhausted. I'll have to fight for at least a few dozen times before things change. I have to end this quickly. Facing Niklos Blaze, who had mastered a complete blood skill, it would be difficult for ordinary methods to hurt Niklos Blaze before Niklos Blaze's blood force was exhausted. Determination flashed across Grey's face as he made his decision. Rip! With the sound of cloth tearing, Grey's clothes on his upper body were torn apart. His body suddenly expanded until he was over 2 meters tall. It was obvious that he had also used a blood skill. There were many opponents in this tomb. Using a blood skill would consume a large amount of blood force, and there would be a side effect of dizziness after using it. It would be very dangerous. However, this was the perfect opportunity to kill Niklos Blaze. It would be a pity if he missed it, so he decisively used Fury. A violent and dangerous aura emanated from Grey's body. Just like before, Grey swung his sword again. It was the same sword, but the color of the black mist giant blade had become deeper. It was as if it could absorb the surrounding light. Ripples appeared in the air as it swiftly attacked Niklos Blaze. Not good. Niklos Blaze's expression changed. He felt a hair-raising danger from this black mist giant blade. He felt that even if he used a blood skill, he would definitely not be able to block this attack. Almost instinctively, he leaped to the side in an attempt to avoid this attack. However, he was shocked to find that the black mist giant blade was too fast for him to dodge. It was at this moment that a sudden change occurred. Swoosh! A golden light beam suddenly appeared from the side and swiftly collided with the black mist giant blade. Boom! The terrifying black giant blade shattered, setting off a strong gust of wind. The gust of wind was as sharp as a blade. Scratches appeared on Niklos Blaze's body as he was closer. However, he was not hit by the black giant blade and was not seriously injured. He managed to dodge this attack. What? Grey exclaimed. This golden light beam actually blocked his attack, which should have reached the third stage of the King stage after he used his blood skill. One could imagine the power of this attack. He could not help but look in the direction of the golden light beam. In that direction, a skinny old man appeared at the door of the room. He had seen this old man in the Fire Kingdom's team before. Now, it seemed that this old man was most likely a third stage king, which meant that he had undergone the second metamorphosis. You have such strength at such a young age. I can't let you live." The skinny old man looked at Gray with a piercingly cold gaze. He had rushed over after hearing the commotion of the battle. When Gray and Niklos Blaze were fighting, he had already arrived. However, he did not immediately save Niklos Blaze. Juniors needed to be trained in order to grow. He treated this as a form of training for Niklos Blaze. It was only when he saw Gray brazenly use his blood skill and unleash a power that Niklos Blaze could not block that he took action to stop the attack. Whoosh! Gray was alerted of danger. He maintained his berserk state and changed his direction to slash at the skinny old man. The black giant blade, which had reached the third stage of the king's stage, emitted a terrifying wave of energy and attacked the skinny old man. Meanwhile, he quickly retreated toward Francis and Sophia. Humph! Faced with such a powerful attack, the skinny old man only snorted coldly. He stabbed his spear and instantly shattered the black giant blade. Then, with a whoosh, he chased after Gray. Gray, who was in berserk state, was not only strengthened in his blood fiends, but also in his speed, strength, and defense. His speed had reached the second stage of the king's stage. However, compared to the skinny old man, he was clearly one level slower. The skinny old man was quickly closing the distance between him and the skinny old man. Sensing that the skinny old man was quickly approaching, Gray turned to face him. After being strengthened by his blood skill, the black giant blade's power should have reached the third stage of the king's stage. He slashed at the skinny old man again and again while retreating. Crack, crack, crack. Faced with the black giant blade's power that was at the third stage of the king's stage, the skinny old man did not dare to be too careless. He could only dodge or block these black giant blades. He could not help but slow down his footsteps toward Gray. Final struggle. However, the skinny old man was not worried that Gray would escape. Even if he had mastered a complete blood skill, he would not be able to use it for a long time. When his opponent's blood power was exhausted, the skinny old man could easily catch up and kill him. Taking advantage of the time the old man's footsteps slowed down, Gray finally retreated to the room where Francis and Sophia were. His two hands touched each of them, immediately activating the purple ring. Whoosh! Gray's figure disappeared in an instant with Francis and Sophia. Whoosh! Not long after Gray entered the room, the old man rushed in. Where is he? The old man who rushed into the room could not help but look puzzled. The room was empty. There was not a single person in sight. How did he escape in such a short time? He did not see Gray and the other two teleport away. He was not sure how Gray had escaped. After all, there were many ways to escape, and some other methods could achieve the same effect. Gray and the other two appeared in a secret place not far from the graveyard. After confirming that there was no danger around, Gray quickly deactivated Blood Skill Berserk. Maintaining Blood Skill Berserk consumed a large amount of his blood power almost every second. The moment he deactivated Blood Skill Berserk, he felt slightly dizzy and his body could not help but sway slightly. Are you okay? Francis and Sophia quickly supported Gray and asked with concern. I'm fine. I just feel a little dizzy. This is the side effect of using this blood skill. Gray shook his head. After a while, he recovered. Only then did he realize that his back was wet. The confrontation just now was very dangerous. If he was not careful, he could have been left there forever. It was not that Gray was weak. It was just that he was unlucky to have met a king-level expert of the Flame Kingdom who had gone through 2 metamorphoses. A king-level expert who had gone through 2 metamorphoses was rare even in the Flame Kingdom. He did not expect to meet one when he was fighting against Niklos Blaze. More than half of my blood power has been consumed. He sensed the amount of blood power and realized that he had consumed more than half of his blood power in the process of using Blood Skill Berserk. In his current state, it was obviously impossible to continue exploring the tomb. He endured the pain and took out a bottle of purplish-red potion. He opened the bottle cork and drank it. Purplish-red potion was a high-grade potion that could recover blood power and physical fatigue. It was effective even for kings. Gray had asked the royal family's master alchemist to identify this potion. There were a total of 5 bottles. Such a potion was naturally very precious. It could be a life-saving measure at a critical moment. Most importantly, there was no formula for this level of potion in the Four Kingdoms. It was impossible to refine it. However, they could not afford to wait while exploring the tomb. Hence, they could only splurge on a bottle of purplish-red potion. Let's go. This time, we'll avoid the previous direction and search in another direction. We should be able to avoid encountering that old man, Gray said to Francis and Sophia. However, Francis and Sophia shook their heads slightly. No, we've already gained a lot. We won't get involved. All right then. Seeing that the two of them had decided not to enter, Gray did not say anything more. It was definitely dangerous inside. The three of them had been forced to escape just now. Since the two of them had decided not to enter, he naturally would not persuade them otherwise. Chapter 544. Entering the tomb again, Gray returned to the hall he had first entered. Following the same path, Gray quickly entered the hall on the second floor. This time, he avoided the room where he had encountered Niklos Blaze and searched in another direction. They searched through the rooms one by one. Some of the rooms had obvious traces of being searched, while some of the rooms had not been searched at all. There were many rooms in the tomb, and they were connected in all directions. Almost every room had 2 or 3 entrances. Even if someone had searched the previous rooms, there were still some rooms that had not been searched. Because of Sophia's previous reminder, Gray paid special attention to the decorations in the room, and this kind of search allowed him to once again reap a harvest. He once again found several decorations made of precious metals. Added together, they were roughly equivalent to the weight of 2 or 3 silver weapons. Although Gray had obtained a lot of materials for making silver weapons, enough to make 5 or 6 silver weapons, in reality, the materials for making silver weapons were extremely rare. Even for a king-level fighter, it was not easy to gather enough materials to make a silver weapon. Some kings who were unlucky and had no background would never be able to gather enough materials to make a silver weapon. Some duke families, such as the Nahum family, had more than one king-level fighter. But in reality, they only had one silver weapon, and it had been passed down from generation to generation. It was clear how difficult it was to obtain materials for silver weapons. For there to be so many precious materials for making silver weapons in this tomb, it could only be said that the owner of this tomb was too rich. This was a tomb full of treasures. Gray continued to search until he reached the end of the path. A staircase leading down appeared in front of him. Gray followed the staircase and entered the 3rd floor of the tomb. As soon as he entered the 3rd floor, Gray saw a corpse lying in a pool of blood. The face was facing upwards. It was the figure of a middle-aged man. Gray walked closer and recognized that it was one of the members of the Jewel Kingdom team. It was obvious that he had encountered something good, which led to a dispute and was eventually killed. The one who killed him should be from the Flame Kingdom or the 5th Force. Although the people from the Purple Moon Kingdom and the Scarlet Kingdom would definitely snatch the good stuff when they came across it, they probably wouldn't kill him. This was the first corpse that Gray had found, but it was definitely not the first person to be killed. It was very likely that someone had already been killed on the upper 2 floors, but Gray had not encountered them yet. Beside the corpse, Gray saw a standing statue. It was a statue carved out of black jade. It was very lifelike and wore battle armor. It looked extremely mighty. However, his right hand was badly damaged, and there were pieces of broken jade on the ground, as if it had been broken by someone. Could it be that the item in the statue's hand was the cause of the fight? With that in mind, Gray avoided the corpse and moved forward. He searched a few more rooms, but to no avail. In front of him, a black jade sculpture appeared in front of him again. He subconsciously looked at the sculpture's hand. It was also crushed. It seems that the item in the sculpture's hand was the cause of the fight. The sculpture's right hand was also crushed like the previous one, and the broken jade fell all over the ground. Now, Gray was almost certain that the item in the sculpture's hand was the cause of the fight. The sculpture should be missing a weapon. Could it be that the silver weapon was used as a decoration? Gray felt that his guess was too exaggerated. No matter how rich the owner was, they would not use a silver weapon as a decoration for the sculpture. However, He had a faint feeling that the owner of the tomb had used the precious metal used to forge silver weapons as a decoration. It was not impossible to use a silver weapon as a decoration for the sculpture. As he continued to search, Gray found 2 more sculptures. Without exception, one of the hands was destroyed, and the weapon that should have been in the hand was missing. Similarly, he also found a few corpses. Some were from the Purple Moon Kingdom, some were from the Scarlet Kingdom, some were from the Jewel Kingdom, and some were from the Flame Kingdom. He took a few steps forward and entered another room. Another sculpture appeared in front of Gray. The hand of this sculpture is not destroyed. Gray was slightly surprised to find that the hand of this sculpture was not destroyed. However, the sculpture did not have a weapon in its hand. Its hands were hanging by its sides, and it was wearing an ancient aristocratic costume. Its entire body exuded a heroic aura. This sculpture should be someone with a high status. Gray looked at the hands of the sculpture, and soon he found something unexpected. On the left index finger of the sculpture, there was a black metal ring that almost blended in with the black jade. If one did not look carefully, one would not even notice it. Gray broke the finger of the sculpture and took off the black ring. I wonder if it's just a decoration or a magical weapon. With a thought, Gray put the black metal ring on his left hand and poured the power of blood into it. Whoosh! As Gray poured the power of blood into the ring, a black light spread out and covered Gray's entire body. Then, Gray found that on the surface of his body, something was condensing out of the black light. As he continued to pour in the power of blood, the thing that was condensing became clearer. Legs, abdomen, head, arms. On the surface of his body, a set of black battle armor appeared. Even the position of his eyes was covered by a layer, but it was transparent and could be easily seen outside. This ring is a set of battle armor? Gray was surprised. It was the first time he saw battle armor in such a form, and it was really an eye-opener. It's like it was tailor-made for me. After moving a little, Gray found that this set of battle armor was very tight, as if it was tailor-made for him. Not a bit more, not a bit less. Most importantly, he did not feel the slightest bit of weight. It was extremely comfortable to wear, and he was very satisfied. I wonder how the defense is. Gray pulled out the sword at his waist, and with only his physical strength, he slashed at his own arm. With his current defense, he could easily withstand a blow with just his physical strength, so he was not worried about hurting himself. As for damaging the battle armor, Gray did not care too much. The reason why he did not wear battle armor now was not because he did not like wearing battle armor, but because the battle armor could not provide him with any protection. There was really no need to wear it. If it could not even withstand such a blow, this battle armor was completely useless to him. It was not practical at all, and he would not feel bad if it was damaged. Pong! The blue long sword slashed at Gray's arm, and a muffled sound was heard. Gray looked at the left arm of the battle armor, and saw that the black battle armor's arm was intact, without any damage. The defense is okay. At least it should be difficult for anyone below the king level to hurt it. Gray nodded slightly and commented. Now, even if he did not use his blood beast ability, his physical strength was enough to reach the 3rd level of the desolation level. If it was not damaged by such a blow, it meant that this battle armor could not be hurt by anyone below the king level. No, the feeling of being hit by the sword just now was a little different than usual. Suddenly, Gray remembered the feeling of being hit by the sword just now, and his eyes showed a trace of surprise. He raised the sword and slashed at his arm again. Pong! The same muffled sound was heard. This time, Gray felt it carefully, and after a moment, his eyes could not help but light up. Sure enough, I did not feel the impact just now. No matter how strong one's defense was, if they were attacked, they would inevitably be hit and be pushed back by the impact. Because of this, people who were strong enough to withstand the attack would always be pushed back by the enemy's attack, and their rhythm would be interrupted by the enemy's attack. There was only one way to get out of this awkward situation, and that was to be strong enough to withstand the impact. Even so, they would still be hit by the impact, and they would only be able to withstand it with their strong strength. However, he clearly did not feel the slightest bit of impact just now. All the impact seemed to have disappeared after passing through the battle armor. A battle armor that can withstand an attack, but not feel the impact. What a good thing. I just don't know how strong its defense is. The advantages of having a battle armor that could not feel the impact were obvious. When fighting with the enemy could not push you back and interrupt your attack, but you could push the enemy back and interrupt the enemy's attack. In this way, you would immediately have an advantage. The only thing that worried him was the limit of this battle armor, and what kind of attack it could withstand without being pushed back. Now is not the time. I'll test it carefully when I have time. After all, he was searching the tomb. If he was slow, the good things in the tomb would be looted by others. Gray hurriedly left the room. He did not remove the battle armor on his body. If he encountered a battle later, he could test it in actual combat. After passing through several rooms, Gray found the stairs to the 4th floor. Going down the stairs, Gray entered the 4th floor. Boom, boom, boom. As soon as he entered the 4th floor, Gray immediately felt one roar after another, and the earth shook as if the whole tomb was about to collapse. When he was on the 3rd floor, he did not feel this movement at all. It should be some kind of rune mechanism in the tomb that blocked this movement. He looked at the 4th floor and found that it was completely different from the previous 3 floors. It was an extremely large square, and it was very high from the top, about 20 meters. At this moment, the people of the 4 kingdoms and the 5th power were gathered in the square. Some of them were at the edge of the square, while others were in battle. Every one of these people was a king-level warrior, and they were fighting against 5 rune puppets that were more than 10 meters tall. The loud sounds were the result of this battle. Gray noticed that behind the 5 rune puppets were 2 huge metal doors. The 5 rune puppets blocked the metal doors, preventing people from approaching. Chapter 545. What powerful rune puppets! Gray stared at the 5 runic puppets in shock. At that moment, the main force fighting the 5 runic puppets were the 4 thrice metamorphosis king-class powerhouses from the 4 kingdoms and a thrice metamorphosis king-class powerhouse from the 5th organization. Even so, the 5 rune puppets were not at a disadvantage at all, and even injured the other king-level powerhouses who were surrounding them from time to time. Although their power is not at the magic light level, they must have reached the thrice metamorphosis king level. Gray's expression became serious. Fortunately, the 4 kingdoms and the 5th faction had entered the graveyard this time. If any of the kingdoms had entered alone, they would have been attacked by 5 thrice metamorphosis king-level rune puppets. If they were not careful, all the king-level powerhouses would have died here. Moreover, their defense is too strong. Even the attack of a thrice metamorphosis king-level powerhouse would find it difficult to leave a large wound. After a moment of observation, Gray's expression became even more serious. The surface of the 5 rune puppets' bodies all had a metallic luster. Gray estimated that the materials used in the 5 rune puppets were not all precious metals that could be used to forge silver-grade weapons, but there must have been a lot of such precious metals mixed in. Under normal circumstances, even the metals used to forge magic weapons at the pinnacle of bronze would not be able to withstand the attacks of king-level powerhouses. Only by mixing in precious metals that could be used to forge silver-grade weapons would it be difficult for a thrice metamorphosis king-level powerhouse to injure them. How extravagant! Gray estimated that with the size of these 5 rune puppets, if he could destroy them and find a way to extract the precious metals that had been mixed into their bodies, forging 1 or 200 silver weapons would not be a problem at all. However, from the current situation, it would be extremely difficult to destroy the 5 rune puppets. It would be almost impossible to succeed. Retreat. In the Jewel Kingdom's team, the thrice metamorphosis king-level powerhouse Jennifer Austin, who was fighting the rune puppets, suddenly roared. At the same time, she signaled to everyone and used all her strength to block the rune puppets. Hearing her signal, the Jewel Kingdom's king-level powerhouses quickly retreated. Not only the Jewel Kingdom's king-level powerhouses, but also the Purple Moon Kingdom, the Scarlet Kingdom, the Flame Kingdom, and even the 5th faction's king-level powerhouses. The thrice metamorphosis king-level powerhouses blocked the rune puppets, while the others retreated quickly. Everyone retreated to the edge of the square. Finally, they retreated to the edge of the square and joined the group of spectators. Then, the 5 thrice metamorphosed king stage masters also retreated to the edge of the square. The 5 rune puppets chased after them for some distance, but after they were a certain distance away from the 2 metal doors, they stopped and retreated back to the 2 metal doors. Seeing that the battle had stopped, Gray walked towards the Purple Moon Kingdom's team. However, this immediately caused the Purple Moon Kingdom's team to be on guard. You are. Although he had white hair, the middle-aged king-level powerhouse, Fitch Violet, looked at Gray cautiously and asked, "Sir Fitch, I am Gray." Gray then remembered that the combat suit he was wearing was a full-body suit that even covered his face. There was no way to identify him, so he quickly identified himself. Then, he tried to control the black ring to see if he could remove the helmet. After a few attempts, the helmet finally disappeared, and his face was finally revealed. What an interesting combat suit. It doesn't look like leather, but more like a blood fiend's ability. Did you get it from the graveyard? Fitch Violet looked curiously at Gray, whose face was revealed after the helmet disappeared. Yes, I got it not long ago. I'm still trying to figure out its use. Gray didn't deny it. He still trusted the royal family of the Purple Moon Kingdom. Then he asked, "Sir Fitch, is the final tomb behind those 2 metal doors?" Yes. The people of the 5th power have the means to investigate the structure of the tomb. According to their investigation, the final tomb is behind those 2 metal doors. Fitch Violet nodded. With the protection of these 5 rune puppets, it will be very difficult to break open the metal doors and enter. Gray frowned slightly. It is indeed difficult. Even a thrice metamorphosed king-level powerhouse would find it difficult to leave a large wound. Fitch Violet frowned as well. His first metamorphosed attack hadn't even been able to leave a wound on the rune puppets. All he could do was work together with the others to slightly impede the movements of the rune puppets and restrain them. And there's no way for a rune master to break through. Gray thought of a rune master, but shook his head in the end. A rune master could break through a rune mechanism because the mechanism was fixed. He could embed deciphering patterns into it to hinder the operation of the runes, ultimately achieving the goal of breaking the mechanism. But now that he was facing 5 mobile rune puppets, this method obviously wouldn't work. Now he can only continuously consume the 5 rune puppets and let them exhaust their magic power. Fitch Violet thought for a moment and said, "I'm afraid this will take a lot of time." Gray said, "According to historical records, high-level rune puppets generally had a magic power storage device that would absorb the magic power in magic crystals and store it. And this storage method could store an extremely large amount of magic power. It was also for this reason that the rune puppets from more than 1,000 years ago still had magic power. It would definitely take a long time to exhaust the magic power of the rune puppets by consuming their magic power. That's the only way now." Fitch Violet sighed slightly. This method was indeed stupid, but there was no other way now. After all, these 5 rune puppets were really too powerful. In the Flame Kingdom's team, Niklos Blaze, seeing Gray appear, recounted his encounter with hatred. What? He actually dared to attack Niklos? He's courting death. A king-class warrior from the Flame Kingdom said angrily. He already has the fighting strength of a second-stage king-class warrior, and also has a complete blood skill. He can temporarily erupt with the fighting strength of a third-stage king-class warrior. This Gray Fergus is becoming more and more of a threat. A king-class warrior from the Flame Kingdom had a worried expression. We have to kill him at all costs. If we have the chance later, we must kill him. A king-class warrior from the Flame Kingdom had a ruthless look in his eyes. While talking with Fitch Violet, Gray suddenly felt many cold gazes looking at him. He looked over and found many king-class warriors from the Flame Kingdom looking at him with unfriendly gazes. Among them, Niklos Blaze was saying something with his eyes, spitting fire, and it seemed that it was his words that attracted the unfriendly gazes of the Flame Kingdom's king-class warriors. Fitch Violet naturally sensed the gaze as well and asked in puzzlement, "What did you do? Why do I feel that the king-class warriors of the Flame Kingdom are looking at you with unfriendly gazes? Last time, the Flame Kingdom sent the King of Assassins to assassinate me. This time, I met Niklos Blaze in the tomb, so I took a little revenge and tried to assassinate Niklos Blaze, but it didn't work. Being stared at by so many king-class warriors, Gray felt some pressure, but his expression didn't change much as he explained to Fitch Violet. With his current strength, there weren't many who were stronger than him in the Flame Kingdom. In addition, he had a teleportation magic item. Even if these people attacked him, he was confident that he could escape using teleportation. Previously, when he encountered the second Metamorphosis King-class warriors from the Flame Kingdom, it was very difficult for him to escape. That was because Sophia and Francis were there. If he was alone, he could use teleportation to escape at any time. It wouldn't have been as thrilling as the previous escape. No wonder Niklos Blaze is so important to the Flame Kingdom. No wonder the Flame Kingdom's King-class warriors are looking at you as if they want to eat you. Fitch Violet said in realization. He didn't blame Gray for sneaking up on Niklos Blaze. It was common for the three kingdoms and the Flame Kingdom to attack each other. It had happened more than once when they were exploring the tomb. If he had the chance, he wouldn't hesitate to attack Niklos Blaze. As for offending the Flame Kingdom, he didn't need to care. After all, the relationship between the Purple Moon Kingdom and the Flame Kingdom wasn't good to begin with. Now, they were only temporarily restraining their conflict because of their common interests. Not long after, the Four Kingdoms and the Fifth Kingdom sent out representatives to discuss countermeasures. The result was as Fitch Violet had guessed. The only solution they could think of was to continuously deplete the rune puppet's mana until it ran out. After resting for a few hours, the 5 king-level warriors recovered their blood power and began to attack the runic puppets again, depleting the runic puppet's mana. Gray also joined in. After all, his strongest combat strength, without using his blood energy, was already at the second tier of the king level. He wasn't at the bottom of the king level anymore. Under such circumstances, it wouldn't be right if he didn't put in effort. Be careful. Don't get too close. Lord Tefuni will stop it. We only need to attack and hinder it from a distance. Afraid that Gray would rush too close, Fitch Violet reminded Gray. Understand. Gray nodded. The strength of the rune puppet was obvious. If he was hit, even with his current strongest defense, he wouldn't be able to withstand it. Fortunately, the rune puppet didn't have any long-range attacks. With Typhony Violet, a thrice metamorphosed king level, attacking from a distance wasn't too dangerous. Attack! Following the voices of the 5 thrice metamorphosed kings, the group of kings quickly rushed towards the 5 rune puppets. The ones charging at the front were naturally the 5 thrice metamorphosed kings. Rumble, rumble, rumble. A terrifying sound rang out as the 5 thrice metamorphosed kings met the 5 rune puppets head-on. The attacks of the 5 left marks on the metal bodies of the rune puppets. Some were scratches, some were burn marks. However, compared to the huge bodies of the rune puppets, these marks didn't do much damage to the rune puppets. Clang, clang. After being attacked, the rune puppets' eyes glowed red. They began to counterattack. Some of them held huge swords that were several meters long, while others had huge claws. They all attacked the 5 thrice metamorphosed kings. At this moment, the 5 thrice metamorphosed kings all made their moves. Streams of blood energy that were at least at the king level attacked the rune puppets. Rumble, rumble. Every rune puppet was hit by several king-level attacks. Some of the attacks were only second to a thrice metamorphosed king level, reaching the twice metamorphosed king level. Although the rune puppets were not damaged, their movements were hindered. Then, the 5 thrice metamorphosed kings made their moves again, forcing the rune puppets' huge bodies to stagger back. Chapter 546. Why is Gray Fergus with a king-class expert? Since the only unexplored area of the tomb was the final tomb chamber, the dangers ahead had basically been swept away. Those who did not enter the tomb chamber because of the danger were led into the square by the 4 king-class experts, including a group of young people. Seeing Gray move with a king-class expert, some of the young people were puzzled. Although Gray Fergus's realm is not king-class, his combat strength has already reached king-class. Even Niklos Blaze is not his opponent. Since Niklos Blaze is here, it is natural that he is in the king-class team. A young man said, Didn't you hear what the king-class experts said? Other than the 5 thrice-metamorphosed king-class experts who are fighting the rune puppet in close combat, the others are responsible for long-range attacks to hinder the rune puppet. However, the 2 king-class experts in Grey Furtus's hands are both physical-type blood fiends. Another young man shook his head and said, "Doesn't the demonic sound king beast have long-range attacks?" The young man in front was unconvinced. The demonic sound king beast's sound wave attack is too diffuse. It will affect the thrice metamorphosed king-class experts who are fighting the rune puppet in close combat. It cannot be used. A young man retorted. Hearing their argument, the gemstone queen, Sophia, and Francis had strange expressions. When these people saw Grey display the combat strength of a second-stage king-class expert, they did not know what to think. Whoosh! Following the king-class expert of the Purple Moon Kingdom, Grey slashed out from afar. The compressed black mist turned into a giant blade that was several meters long and slashed at the rune puppet. Bang! The moment it hit the rune puppet, the compressed mist blade immediately dissipated. However, the rune puppet's surface was not damaged at all. What a terrifying defense! Although he had expected this, Grey could not help but be speechless when he saw this scene. The combat strength of a thrice metamorphosed king-class expert in addition to a strong defense. To a certain extent, such a rune puppet was even more difficult to deal with than a thrice metamorphosed king-class expert. Although he was surprised, Grey didn't stop attacking. He and the other kings of the Purple Moon Kingdom would attack the runic puppet every time it was about to attack Diphony Violet. They would attack the runic puppet wave after wave, hindering its movements. With so many kings attacking at the same time, even the powerful rune puppet couldn't help but be hindered. Its attack on Diphony Violet was interrupted from time to time, and Diphony Violet's battle became much easier. Did I sense it wrongly? Why do I feel that the power of his blood fiends is not inferior to that of King? Seeing Grey make a move, the young people watching the battle at the side of the square immediately noticed the abnormality. One of the young people said, with a surprised expression, from Grey's black mist giant blade, he felt a terrifying aura that could tear them apart. Only a king could have such a terrifying aura. You didn't sense it wrongly. I also felt that terrifying aura. A young man said solemnly, and I feel that the power of his black mist is even stronger than that of an ordinary king. Indeed, I feel the same way. Many young people said solemnly. The power of the black mist is actually stronger than that of an ordinary king. Doesn't that mean that Grey Furtus's strongest ability is not his ability to control corpses, but his black mist ability? After coming to this conclusion, all the young people were shocked. They looked at Grey as if they were looking at a monster. Niklos Blaze, who had become a king at the age of 26, was already extremely exaggerated. However, Grey was even more exaggerated than Niklos Blaze. He was younger than Niklos Blaze, but his combat power was very likely a level higher than Niklos Blaze's. They were all of the young generation, but the gap between them and Wang Zhong was so great that they felt an enormous pressure. It was so great that they couldn't breathe. They simply couldn't think of chasing after Wang Zhong. When there was a gap in power, but the gap wasn't that big, they would try their best to catch up. However, when the gap was so big, they couldn't muster up the courage to chase after Wang Zhong. If this continues, I'm afraid that the young generation will live under Grey's shadow. Francis smiled bitterly. Although this was the second time he had seen Grey display his second-tier king's combat power, he still couldn't help but feel shocked. For someone younger than them to possess such combat power was a huge blow to their confidence. There are already people living under his shadow. The Gem Queen smiled bitterly. She signaled Francis to look at some of the young people present. Suddenly, the young people's faces looked as if they had been hit hard. They came from the royal families of the 4 kingdoms. Along the way, they had heard all kinds of praises. They were called geniuses, and they boasted that they were geniuses. They were confident in their own talents. Even if others were ahead of them, they were confident that they would catch up quickly. However, when they discovered that there was someone among their generation that they couldn't catch up to no matter how hard they tried, they couldn't help but feel disappointed. They couldn't help but doubt their own reputation as geniuses. Can't this guy keep a low profile? Sophia rolled her eyes. She glanced at the square, speechlessly. Gray was working together with a group of king experts. His aura wasn't inferior to the other king experts at all. With the other party's actions, the younger generation of the four great kingdoms might suffer a heavy blow and become dispirited. Although she was happy to see the younger generation of the Raging Flame kingdom suffer a blow, this kind of blow didn't differentiate between friend and foe. The younger generation of the Purple Moon Kingdom would also suffer a blow. On the square, the destructive power of the king experts constantly exploded. The king experts of the four kingdoms and the fifth force all focused their attention on the rune puppets. At this moment, in the direction of the Flame Kingdom, the king expert who had fought with Gray before had a cold look in his eyes. Shio! A blazing golden beam of flame shot out, seeming to be aimed at the rune puppet. However, in front of the rune puppet, it very coincidentally brushed past the rune puppet. Like a stray bullet, it shot towards the direction of the Purple Moon Kingdom. And coincidentally, this blazing golden beam of fire shot towards Gray's back. Gray, be careful! Seeing the golden beam of fire shooting towards Gray's back, Sophia, Francis, and the others couldn't help but cry out in alarm. But in reality, the speed of this golden beam of fire was extremely terrifying. Before they could shout out, the golden beam of fire had already struck Gray. Whoosh! Gray naturally didn't have eyes on the back of his head, but he could clearly feel the extreme heat and the bone-piercing danger. In an instant, his hair stood on end. He didn't have time to turn around and block it, nor did he have time to dodge. His intuition told him that the only thing he could do now was to raise his defense to the highest level and take this blow head-on. He had already used metallization at the beginning of the battle. After all, he was facing a rune puppet that was comparable to a thrice metamorphosis king. If an accident happened, it would be very dangerous. Therefore, he had already used metallization at the beginning to increase his defense. However, this wasn't his strongest defense at the moment. His strongest defense now was after using Blood Frenzy, which increased his defense. Of course, this method consumed too much of his blood power, so he could only use it at a critical moment. And now was clearly such a critical moment. Crack! Crack! Along with the cracking sounds of his bones, Gray's body expanded in an instant. In an instant, he had grown to over 2 meters tall. His originally delicate figure had become burly. At this moment, the golden beam of fire had already struck Gray's back. The attack came too suddenly. The king experts of the Purple Moon Kingdom were all focused on attacking the rune puppets. By the time they noticed it, the king warriors who had the ability to intercept it were already too late. Rumble. The golden flames exploded on Gray's back, as if a golden sun had exploded. At the same time that it exploded, it also emitted a terrifying heat. Gray felt the impact and heat on his back, but unexpectedly, it wasn't too strong. His defense had greatly increased after Blood Frenzy, and he easily withstood it. After withstanding the attack, he felt that his injuries weren't too serious. Gray turned around with a gloomy face, his eyes looking angrily in the direction of the Flame Kingdom. He knew that the Flame Kingdom would definitely attack him again, but he didn't expect that the Flame Kingdom would actually attack him at such a time, when all the forces were working together to attack the rune puppets. Flame Kingdom, Gray's voice was icy cold. Gray Fergus, that was just a mistake. Among the Flame Kingdom's troops, a twice metamorphosis king expert who had attacked Gray just now felt a trace of regret. Seeing Gray's unfriendly gaze, he said the excuse he had thought of from the beginning. Do you think anyone will believe such an excuse? Gray snorted coldly. Naturally, he wouldn't believe such an excuse, and the look in his eyes became even colder. Shua! In Blood Frenzy, the long sword in his hand slashed out, and a large amount of black fog surged, turning into a wave that attacked the Flame Kingdom, covering everyone in the Flame Kingdom. Since the Flame Kingdom had already attacked, he naturally didn't care that the Purple Moon Kingdom and the Flame Kingdom were still in a cooperative relationship. Boom! Seeing a large amount of black fog coming, the twice metamorphosis king expert hurriedly blocked it, and a golden flame immediately tore the black fog into pieces. However, the collision was too close, and many people in the Flame Kingdom were affected by the aftermath of the explosion. In addition, this was a collision second only to a thrice metamorphosis king expert, so their attacks on the rune puppets couldn't help but slow down. This was also Gray's goal. Gray was very clear that even after Blood Frenzy, he still wouldn't be able to pose a threat to the Flame Kingdom. Therefore, from the beginning, his plan was only to obstruct them. This was also the reason why he had used such a large area of effect attack. Schwa. The aftermath of the explosion also affected the rune puppets, but because of their strong defense, they weren't affected as much as the Flame Kingdom's king experts. It took a few steps forward and actually managed to break free from Blair Blaze's entanglement. The sharp claws on its hands clawed at a Flame Kingdom's king expert. Coincidentally, this king-class warrior was the same old man who had launched a sneak attack on Gray. Pooh! The old man dodged in a panic, but he was still grazed by the sharp claws. Immediately, several deep scratches appeared on his body, and he flew backwards. Chapter 547. Bruce, quick, get out of the way. Seeing the old man being sent flying by the rune puppet's attack, the Flame Kingdom's king-class warriors were both worried and terrified. They avoided the rune puppet like it was a snake or a scorpion. Schwa. Although the rune puppet's body was heavy, it was not slow. After the old man's death was uncertain, it clawed at another Flame Kingdom's king-class warrior. This Flame Kingdom's king-class warrior was an ordinary king-class warrior. He dodged in terror, but how could his speed compare to a thrice metamorphosed king-class rune puppet? He was about to be cut into several pieces by the rune puppet's sharp claws. Clang! At this moment, Blair Blaze finally caught up. His flaming spear struck the rune puppet's sharp claws, blocking the rune puppet's claw. Bruce, how are you? Gray Fergus, you're courting death. Seeing that the rune puppet was blocked, the Flame Kingdom's king-class warriors heaved a sigh of relief. Some hurried to check on Bruce Blaze's injuries, while others looked angrily at Gray. Gray's response to this was a sneer. In his berserk state, another wave of black fog attacked the Flame Kingdom's king-class warriors. The churning black fog wave once again covered all the Flame Kingdom's king-class warriors. Boom! Another Flame Kingdom's king-class warrior who had undergone 2 metamorphoses tried to stop it, but the aftermath of the attack affected the Flame Kingdom's king-class warriors again. Retreat. Brer Raging Flames coldly glanced at Gray. He entangled the rune puppet and roared angrily. The Flame Kingdom's king-class warriors received the order and all retreated to the edge of the square. Seeing this, the Purple Moon, Scarlet, Gem, and the Fifth Power's king-class warriors could not help but retreat. In the end, because of this farce, the 4 kingdoms and the Fifth Power had to stop their attacks on the rune puppet and retreat to the edge of the square. Retreating to the edge of the plaza, Gray placed himself in the protection of the Purple Moon Kingdom's king-class warriors and deactivated Berserk. Dizziness hit him instantly. After enduring the dizziness, he looked in the direction of the Fire Kingdom. The second Metamorphosis King-level warrior who had been swept by the rune puppet was being supported by 2 King-level warriors from the Flame Kingdom, and was not dead. After all, he was a twice Metamorphosis King-level warrior. Even if he was hit by a triple Metamorphosis King-level rune puppet, he did not die because of it. However, looking at the other party's injuries, it seemed that the other party's injuries weren't light. He probably wouldn't be able to fight for a while. Diffuni, your Purple Moon Kingdom must give my Flame Kingdom an explanation. Hand over Gray Fergus. Under the leadership of Blair Blaze, the Flame Kingdom's king-class warriors aggressively approached the Purple Moon Kingdom. Blair Blaze's cold gaze swept past Gray, who was under the protection of the king-class warriors, and looked at Dyphony Violet, saying in a cold voice, "Explanation? You still want an explanation?" Dyphony Violet was so angry that she laughed. My Purple Moon Kingdom hasn't asked your Flame Kingdom for an explanation, and your Flame Kingdom actually wants an explanation from my Purple Moon Kingdom first. Dyphony Violet's voice was cold as she led Gray and the Purple Moon Kingdom's king-class warriors to confront the Flame Kingdom. You still dare to ask for an explanation? Can the Flame Kingdom be any more shameless? If you want to fight, then let's fight. Do you really think my Purple Moon Kingdom is easy to bully? The Purple Moon Kingdom's king-class warriors were all furious. When they were besieging the rune puppets, the Flame Kingdom actually attacked Gray. In terms of anger, their anger was no less than the Flame Kingdom's. What made them even angrier was that the Flame Kingdom actually dared to come to the Purple Moon Kingdom to ask for an explanation. They had already displayed their shamelessness to the extreme. That was just an accident, Blair Blaze said coldly. An accident? Blair, do you really think my Purple Moon Kingdom is a fool? Whether it was an accident or not, everyone knows in their hearts. Diphony Violet angrily berated. I'll say it again. That was just an accident. Hand over Gray Fergus, or this matter won't end. Blair Blaze said with a cold face. Won't end? How so? The Purple Moon Kingdom will accompany you to the end. Diphony Violet's face was cold. Blair, your Flame Kingdom has gone too far. At this moment, the Jewel Kingdom and Scarlet Kingdom's king-class powerhouses, under the leadership of Jennifer Austin and Lennon Scarlet, two thrice-transformed king-class powerhouses, all walked over and joined the Purple Moon Kingdom's side, forming a confrontation with the Flame Kingdom. The three kingdoms had always been in the same boat. In addition, the Flame Kingdom's attack just now had also angered them. After all, if they could attack the Purple Moon Kingdom, then they might do the same to them. This caused everyone to be angry. The king-class powerhouses on both sides released their auras. The terrifying auras collided between the two sides, and a battle could erupt at any time. For kingdoms, this is really an eye-opener. The four people from the Fifth Force looked at the four kingdoms that could erupt at any time and sneered. They had actually attacked during cooperation. This showed them the bottom line of shamelessness. They won't fight over this, right? Among the four people, one of them gloated. I don't have any objections if they fight over this, but it would be best if they could get rid of the rune puppet before fighting. Then, we'll give the entire square to them. Someone chuckled. In the end, this confrontation did not turn into a battle. Both sides restrained themselves. After all, there was still the Fifth Force present. If both sides fought, it would only benefit the Fifth Force. The confrontation ended. Only now did Gray have time to check the situation on his back. He reached out and touched his back. What he touched was the feel of the armor. It was rather soft, and there were no traces of damage. It's actually not damaged. Gray was pleasantly surprised. The power of the old man's attack had definitely reached the second transformation king class, or even the peak of the second transformation. After all, it was the power of a silver-grade weapon. To be able to remain undamaged under the attack of a second transformation king-class powerhouse. One could imagine how strong the defense of this armor was. I've picked up a treasure. He had really picked up a treasure this time. He had actually obtained a set of armor with such strong defense. Moreover, this set of armor should be able to expand or shrink according to the changes in the user's body size. Just now, when he had used his blood skill frenzy, his body size had skyrocketed, and his height had reached over 2 meters. However, the armor did not burst because of his skyrocketing body size, and he did not feel the slightest bit crowded. Instead, he felt that it was extremely close to his body. Gray, how are you? Are your injuries serious? Sophia and Francis walked over and looked at Gray worriedly. After all, Gray had just suffered an attack from a second transformation king-class powerhouse. The armor is not damaged. It shouldn't be serious. Gray shook his head slightly. The armor is actually not damaged. Sophia was surprised. In the face of an attack from a second transformation king-class powerhouse, even if the armor was made from the leather of a king-class powerhouse, which was good at defense, it would definitely be damaged. However, Gray's armor was actually not damaged. Its defense was simply too strong. To be able to withstand an attack from a second transformation king-class powerhouse without being damaged, the armor you're wearing is probably more valuable than a silver weapon. Francis was also slightly surprised. After entering his own tent, Gray removed the armor, then touched his back and squeezed slightly. However, the skin he touched did not have any traces of damage, and he did not feel any pain at all. As expected, I'm not injured. Gray's heart flashed with an as-expected feeling. Under normal circumstances, Even with the defensive frenzy, he would definitely be injured when faced with an attack from a second transformation king-class powerhouse. However, he was unexpectedly not injured. The reason was obviously because the black armor had blocked most of the attack for him. In the end, the attack transmitted through the black armor to his body was not powerful enough to injure him. This is indeed a piece of equipment that is more valuable than a silver-grade weapon. Gray could not help but think of Francis's words just now. He agreed with Francis's words even more. From his previous tests and his reaction to the attack just now, Gray had a general understanding of this armor. When the power of the attack was not too strong, this set of armor would completely withstand all the attacks, and not even the slightest bit of impact would be transmitted to him. At first, he used a sword to cut his arm, but he did not feel any impact at all. That was because the attack power was too weak. The armor's defense was enough to completely block all the attack power. When the attack power was strong, the power of the attack would be weakened. As a result, the attack power transmitted to Gray's body would be weakened by several levels. Then, Gray's defense would easily withstand the attack. When he was attacked by the second transformation king-class powerhouse from the Flame Kingdom, this was the case. I wonder how strong my defense will be if I wear this set of armor. It was obvious that this armor specialty was that the stronger the defense of the user, the stronger the defense would be after wearing it. Gray could not help but look forward to seeing how strong his defense would be after wearing the armor. Just now, when he had blocked the attack of the second transformation king-class powerhouse, he had clearly blocked it very easily. According to his estimation, even if he did not use his blood skill to strengthen his defense, he should be able to withstand it. However, he did not know if he could withstand the attack of a third transformation king-class powerhouse. Although there had been a sneak attack, the alliance between the four kingdoms and the fifth power had not been dissolved because of this. Everything was driven by benefits. Under the drive of absolute benefits, even the biggest conflicts would be temporarily put aside. Even Gray did not wish for the alliance between the three kingdoms and the Flame Kingdom to fall apart at this time. After all, the final tomb was right in front of him. As for the feud with the Flame Kingdom, it would naturally be settled slowly in the future. In the following few days, they attacked the rune puppets together almost every day. Their cooperation became more and more tacit. It was hard to imagine that the conflict between the several powers here were so deep that they could not be resolved. Very quickly, a week passed. Unexpectedly, the 5 rune puppets still did not show any signs of mana exhaustion. That's not right. Even if they have a mana storage device, they can't possibly last for so long. Chapter 548. That's not right. Even if they have a mana storage device, they shouldn't be able to last this long. The 5 rune puppets had yet to run out of mana after a week of siege. This was extremely abnormal, and a king-class expert voiced his doubts. Indeed, that's not right. It's as if the 5 rune puppets have an endless supply of mana. Gray frowned in doubt as well. Even if they had a mana storage device, they shouldn't have run out of mana after being besieged for a week. This was completely different from the rune puppets of the Empire that had appeared before. Rune Masters, what do you think about this? Jennifer Austin, a thrice-transformed king-class expert from the Jewel Kingdom, asked the 20 or so rune masters politely. That's not right. Even if they have a mana storage device, they shouldn't be able to last this long. One of the rune masters frowned. Can you determine the reason? Blair Blaze, a thrice-transformed king-class expert from the Flame Kingdom, asked. The rune standards of this graveyard far exceed the rune standards of the 4 kingdoms. We can't be sure if we can find a reason. Moreover, if we want to find the reason, we have to observe the rune puppets from a close distance. However, with our strength, a rune master said awkwardly. The 20 or so rune masters weren't strong, and they couldn't get close to the rune puppets at all. We'll have to trouble you, rune masters. Please rest assured about your safety. We'll send king-class experts to protect you. Diphony Violet, a thrice-transformed king-class expert from the Purple Moon Kingdom, assured them. Another round of attacks began, but the difference was that the 20 or so rune masters had appeared in the group and were protected by several king-class experts. With fewer king-class experts besieging the rune puppets, The pressure on the four kingdoms and the fifth force increased significantly. Some king-class experts were injured in the battle, but they retreated without any casualties. Rune Masters, how is it? Have you determined the reason? Jennifer Austin asked. We have a rough idea, but we can't be sure. One of the Rune Masters said after a discussion among the 20 or so Rune Masters. What's the reason? Diphony Violet asked hurriedly. If we're not wrong, there's a very peculiar array pattern on the ground where the runic puppet is located. This array pattern can continuously channel mana into the runic mechanism. The Rune Master said. What? It can actually continuously replenish mana. Hearing this, Gray and the others couldn't help but be shocked, and then they all frowned. Runic puppets were able to continuously replenish their mana, which meant that they could continuously fight. In other words, it was impossible to make the runic puppets stop fighting by exhausting their mana. Masters, I wonder if there's any way to break it? Blair Blaze asked. In theory, if there's a runic array that can cut off the transmission of magic power, it can naturally cut off the replenishment of the runic puppet's magic power, causing the runic puppet's magic power to be completely exhausted. Another Rune Master said, I wonder if you're confident? Jennifer Austin asked hurriedly. This is the first time we've encountered a runic array that can transmit mana. We can't guarantee that we can crack it. A Rune Master had a difficult expression. Please try your best to crack it, Rune Masters. Diphony Violet said. We can only say that we'll try our best. We can't guarantee success. The 20 or so Rune Masters all said. Clang, clang, clang. With the cooperation of the kings, the 20 or so Rune Masters spent several days and finally cut off the runic array that could transmit mana, cutting off the source of the runic puppet's mana. Then, after a few days with 5 consecutive clangs, 5 runic puppets that were more than 10 meters tall had exhausted their mana and completely collapsed. The thrice metamorphosed kings of the 4 kingdoms and the 5th force all quickly put away the runic puppets. What a good thing. Gray looked at the 5 people with slight envy as they put away the runic puppets. The runic puppets were powerful to be able to withstand their continuous attacks for so long without any damage. If they could crack the runic puppets' operating runes and control them, they would immediately have the battle prowess of a thrice metamorphosed king that was almost unkillable. Unfortunately, with his current strength, it was impossible for him to have any ideas about such things. If he had the strength, he wouldn't mind snatching the runic puppets that the Flame Kingdom was besieging to vent his anger. Those below King were left at the edge of the square. The kings, including Gray, walked to the 2 metal doors. These were 2 huge doors made of black metal. They were extremely huge, more than 10 meters tall and more than 20 meters wide, as if they were specially made for giants. On the black door on the left was a giant beast. It was a giant beast that looked like a lizard. Its body was covered in scales, and there were 3 sharp horns on its head. The surface of its body was full of complicated natural patterns, giving it a mysterious feeling. King Blood Beast, Poison King Dragon. No, it should be Magic Light Blood Beast, Magic Poison Dragon. Gray carefully identified these patterns and recognized the giant beast. Magic Poison Dragon, a Magic Light Blood Beast of the Poison Lizard sequence. It was good at using poison, and its poison was extremely corrosive. It was a blood beast with dragon blood. Gray couldn't help but think of the Poison Lizard sequence blood technique that he, Sophia, and Francis had obtained some time ago. He guessed that the owner of the tomb might have cultivated the Poison Lizard sequence blood technique. The metal door on the right wasn't carved with a blood beast. Instead, it was a very special symbol. At the top was a huge crown, and under the crown were cross swords. This is the symbol of the imperial family. The owner of the tomb must be an important member of the imperial family. Seeing this symbol, a king expert judged. The tomb of an important member of the imperial family. Judging this identity, many king experts couldn't help but have a burning look in their eyes. The imperial family of the empire was a force more powerful than the current 4 kingdoms. The wealth they possessed was unimaginable. Unfortunately, until now, no imperial family tomb had been found. Now, one had finally been found, and they were about to enter the final chamber of this tomb. Some king experts couldn't wait to reach out their hands, trying to push open the metal door. Although the two metal doors were huge and weighed dozens of tons, they weren't ordinary people. They wouldn't be stopped by this weight. Crackle. Just at this moment, a sudden change occurred. A large amount of black lightning suddenly appeared above the metal door. The three king experts who touched the metal doors were instantly entangled by this black lightning. Then, their bodies couldn't help but fall to the ground, char-black. After falling to the ground, there was no sound at all. It wasn't clear whether they had fainted or died. Not good. Retreat. The sudden change caused a commotion. Other than the three king experts who had fallen to the ground, it was unknown whether they were dead or alive. The rest of the king experts were so shocked that they retreated, distancing themselves from the metal doors as if they were snakes or scorpions. After a moment, after confirming that there was no attack, all the king experts stopped. They looked at the bodies of the three king experts who had fallen in front of the door with lingering fear. There's a rune mechanism, and it's so powerful. Gray's forehead had a trace of cold sweat. After spending a full 2 weeks, they had finally gotten rid of the rune puppet. All the king experts couldn't help but let down their guard. Even he was somewhat relaxed. He didn't expect that there would be a rune mechanism at the door of the final chamber, and that it would be so powerful. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. 3 figures quickly rushed to the 3 bodies on the ground. They each grabbed one person and quickly retreated. These 3 people were Blair Blaze, Jennifer Austin, and Diphony Violet. The 3 people who had fallen were from the Blaze, Gem, and Purple Moon kingdoms. Dead. The king experts of the 3 kingdoms quickly went forward to check on the situation of the people who had been attacked. Gray also went forward to check on the king experts of the Purple Moon kingdom. The answer he received shocked him. The king expert of the Purple Moon kingdom was dead. He had been killed by the rune mechanism just now. It wasn't just him. The king experts of the Flame kingdom and the Jewel kingdom were the same. They had all died to the rune mechanism just now. After investigating this chamber, many king experts below king level had died. Now, the dead king experts had finally appeared. There were 3 of them. Damn it, there's a rune mechanism, and it's so powerful. The king expert of the Scarlet Kingdom was relieved. The king experts of the Purple Moon Kingdom, Gem, and Blaze Kingdom were all gloomy. What do we do now? Can we get a rune master to crack it? A king expert stared at the metal doors with a worried frown. It can't be cracked. The runes are on the metal doors. There's no way to inlay them. A king expert who was a rune master shook his head. We can only force our way in. Let's attack together. We have so many king experts here. I don't believe we can't even break 2 doors. A king expert said, let's attack together. All the king experts of the 4 kingdoms and the 5th power joined forces again. This time it wasn't rune puppets, but 2 giant metal doors. Boom, boom, boom. A continuous barrage of attacks bombarded the metal gate. Every time the gate was attacked, black lightning would appear on the surface of the gate. However, in the face of so many attacks, even the black lightning could not withstand them all and was annihilated by the barrage of attacks. Boom! A few days passed. After more than 10 rounds of attacks, the metal doors were full of dents. Finally, with a loud boom, the 2 giant metal doors exploded. The chamber behind the metal doors was exposed. Whoosh! 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 At this moment, all the king experts, including Gray, couldn't help but increase their speed to the maximum. They rushed out of the chamber. Chapter 549. Under the illumination of the rune lamp, a magnificent room of the tomb chamber appeared. The walls, the floor, the pillars, the ceiling, everything was golden. It wasn't just the color, but the entire room was decorated with real gold. A conservative estimate was that at least 100 tons of gold had been spent. Even Gray, who didn't care much about ordinary wealth, couldn't help but be speechless at the wealth of the tomb owner. So much gold, if converted into gold coins, should be more than 10 million. And this was only the cost of decorating the room. His eyes swept across the room. Although the room was huge, it wasn't empty. There were many things in the room. There were mountains of gold coins and magic coins, bookshelves that seemed to contain precious books, carriages made of pure gold, rosewood chests inlaid with various gems, weapon racks with weapons. These should have been the tomb owner's belongings when he was alive. In the middle of the room, there was a huge coffin that was more than 10 meters long. It was also made of gold, showing an incomparable nobility. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Looking at the coffin, many kings' eyes burned with passion. They all rushed toward it. There were many things in the tomb, but it was obvious where the most precious thing was. It had to be in this coffin. Boom, boom, boom. Before they even got close to the coffin, the people from the four kingdoms and the fifth power had already started fighting. Thunderous sounds continued to erupt. Some kings were injured and flew back. Some kings sneered and rushed toward the coffin. Inside the room, a terrifying gust of wind was howling. Many things were blown to the side, and many things were smashed to pieces. Whoosh! Gray didn't rush toward the coffin. Instead, he rushed toward the weapon racks. He had a very clear understanding of his own strength. Although he wasn't at the bottom of the kings, he was only at the middle level. He didn't have the ability to compete for the most precious thing in the room. Therefore, as soon as he entered the room, he didn't look for the most precious thing in the room. Just now, he had roughly scanned the room. Other than the coffin in the middle, the most precious thing in the room was probably the weapon racks. There were a total of 5 weapons: a knife, a sword, and a spear. If he guessed correctly, these should be the most precious thing in the room, other than the coffin. Whoosh! Gray gave up on the coffin and set his sights on the weapon rack. It was a wise choice, but there were others like him who had made the same choice. Those who could become kings were all intelligent. Several people rushed towards the weapon rack. Among them, a blond young man burst out with a speed faster than Gray and quickly passed by Gray. He was the first to reach the weapon rack and reached out to grab the weapon rack with 5 weapons. This person was the Prince of Flames, Niklos Blaze. Oomph! Gray snorted coldly. In terms of speed, he wasn't as fast as Niklos Blaze. Niklos Blaze's speed was at the peak of king class, while Hansen's speed was average. However, this didn't mean that he couldn't do anything to Niklos Blaze. Niklos Blaze could snatch something from under his nose. Whoosh! A giant blade made of black mist slashed out from Niklos Blaze's back and quickly slashed towards Niklos Blaze. The low whistling sound and the sharp edge made Niklos Blaze's expression change. He couldn't care less about grabbing his weapon. Niklos Blaze quickly dodged to the side. The giant blade made of black mist brushed past Niklos Blaze. A few strands of his blonde hair were swept away and disappeared. Whoosh! Gray made a move against Niklos Blaze. He couldn't help but pause. Gray forced Niklos Blaze away from the weapon rack. This gave the other kings an opportunity to quickly grab their weapons. Whoosh! 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 At this moment, the 5 weapons on the weapon rack suddenly moved. They automatically left the weapon rack and escaped the hands of the several king-level powerhouses. They flew in one direction and landed in the hands of a single person. This person was none other than Gray. He had the blood of the copperback dragon, so he had the ability to control metal. However, he rarely used it because it wasn't very powerful. He couldn't use it against the king. However, when it came to fighting for weapons, it was like cheating. With this ability, he took all 5 weapons. Gray Fergus. Niklos Blaze had almost succeeded, but he had been interrupted by Gray. He looked angrily at Gray and then instigated the other kings. Everyone, the 5 weapons are enough for each of us, but Gray Fergus took them all. He has gone too far. Let's work together and take them back. Hearing Niklos Blaze's suggestion, the few king tiers couldn't help but be tempted. Although they didn't know what grade the 5 weapons in Gray's hands were, they estimated that the 5 weapons were likely to be silver tier weapons given the wealth of the tomb's owner. Gray glanced at them and calmly put away the weapons. He sneered, "Everyone, there are many good things in this tomb. Every minute and second we delay will reduce our gains. Are you sure you want to waste time with me?" It was impossible to take back the weapons that he had taken. Plus, he didn't think that a group of people could do anything to him. Those who gave up on fighting for the items in the coffin weren't very strong. Gray was very confident in his defense, especially after putting on the black armor. Even if he couldn't win against a group of people, he was confident that he wouldn't be in any danger. The kings thought for a moment and then immediately gave up on attacking Gray. They rushed toward the other items in the tomb. There were many good things in the tomb. Every minute and second they delayed would reduce their gains. Plus, they knew about Gray's strength and terrifying defense. It was hard to say whether they could take back the weapons if they worked together. So, do you still want to fight? After the kings left, only Niklos Blaze was left. Gray looked at him and asked mockingly. Niklos Blaze glared at Gray and snorted. He rushed toward the other items in the tomb. He was confident that he could deal with Gray if they worked together, but it was impossible for him to do it alone. Gray had no intention of attacking Niklos Blaze. There were many kings in the Flame Kingdom. It was impossible to kill Niklos Blaze. It was better to use the time to snatch the items in the tomb. Whoosh! Gray appeared beside the bookshelf. He grabbed the bookshelf and put away all the books on it. Whoosh! Gray appeared beside a wooden box decorated with sapphires. He didn't look at the contents of the wooden box and put it away. Whoosh! Gray appeared beside a wooden box decorated with rubies. He also didn't look at the contents of the wooden box and put it away. Gray's figure flashed through the tomb. He put away everything he saw. He was going to look at it later. The space in his purple ring was huge. He wasn't afraid of it being filled. There were many kings like Gray. From time to time, there were also kings who had their eyes on the same items. Apart from people from the same kingdom, who were more modest with each other, people from other kingdoms, even if the three kingdoms met, would fight to determine the ownership of the items. The most intense place was the tomb in the center. The kings from the four kingdoms and the fifth power who had undergone their third metamorphosis, as well as other kings who were confident in their strength, surrounded the huge golden coffin and fought. The golden coffin should have been reinforced by rune patterns. Otherwise, it would have been torn to pieces during their battle. Even so, it was obvious that cracks had appeared on the surface of the golden coffin. Boom! Suddenly, there was an explosion. The huge golden coffin burst open. The contents of the golden coffin sputtered in all directions. There were large pieces of gold, white bones that exuded pressure, and various items that belonged to the owner of the tomb. Whoosh! A purple bracelet flew out. Several kings who weren't weak rushed towards it. One of the kings grabbed the bracelet in his hand, but before he could put it into his rune bag, another king slashed down with his sword. The king's hand was injured, and the purple bracelet fell to the ground. The king's hand was in pain, and the bracelet fell to the ground. Whoosh! A battle saber that looked like it was made of gold flew in a certain direction. Upon seeing this battle saber, the thrice-transformed kings from the four great kingdoms and the fifth force all made their moves to snatch this battle saber. In front of the battle knife, a king from the Scarlet Kingdom subconsciously reached out and caught the battle knife. He had actually obtained the coffin owner's weapon. Before he could even feel the joy on his face, the next moment, he was horrified. The Kingdom of Inferno's Brer Raging Flame and the fifth faction's thrice-transformed king-class expert attacked him at the same time. Crack! The king from the Scarlet Kingdom was sent flying with his bones broken. He crashed into the wall and died immediately. The saber in his hand flew out the moment he was sent flying in another direction. The five thrice-metamorphosed, king-level cultivators chased after him. Whoosh! A metal ball flew towards Gray. Gray reached out and caught it in his hand. He glanced at it and found that it was a silver metal ball the size of a ping-pong ball. From a feel of it in his hand, it should be the kind of metal ball that he had obtained in the past. It could be traded with the ghost merchant. Hand it over! A king from the Flame Kingdom rushed over. Golden flames spread on his long spear. He clearly wanted to burn Gray to ashes. Not only did he want to snatch the silver metal ball, but he also wanted to kill Gray. Gray's expression changed. Black mist spread on his long sword to block the spear. Clang! The long sword and the long spear collided. Then, Gray was hit hard and couldn't help but retreat. This was a king who had gone through 2 transformations. Chapter 550. Pa pa pa. Gray's body retreated uncontrollably. If the ground had not been reinforced by runic matrices and was several times harder than steel, every step he took would have left a clear footprint on the ground. Whoosh! The second metamorphosis king from the Flame Kingdom chased after him. His spear was suffused with golden flames as it pierced towards Gray's chest. The scorching heat filled the air. Before the spear even reached Gray, Gray felt as if he was being roasted by flames. Gray's body tilted slightly, and the spear pierced his left shoulder. Bang! The black armor's powerful defense blocked the spear and did not pierce through it. However, the scorching heat and impact passed through the black armor and attacked Gray. However, the scorching heat and impact that passed through the black armor were not as strong as expected. Even without using his blood skill to strengthen his body, Gray was able to withstand it without any injuries. As expected, Gray's heart flashed with an as-expected feeling. He swung his sword, and a black longsword that was several meters long was wrapped in black mist. It swept towards the second Metamorphosis King from the Flame Kingdom. Last time, when he was attacked by a second Metamorphosis King, he had already faintly felt that with the black armor weakening the power of the attack, he should be able to withstand such an attack even without using his blood skill to strengthen his body's defense. Therefore, this time, when he was attacked by a second Metamorphosis King, he did not use his berserk immediately. The result confirmed his guess. With the black armor weakening him, even a second Metamorphosis King's attack could not hurt him. Whoosh! The black greatsword was several meters long. It quickly sliced towards the waist of the second Metamorphosis King from the Flame Kingdom. The second Metamorphosis King from the Flame Kingdom was shocked. He did not expect Gray to be unscathed after taking his attack. Gray was not even pushed back by his attack, and even counterattacked. He quickly retreated, but Gray's attack was too sudden and he was too close to Gray. Puff! The black longsword brushed past his waist. The armor made of king-level blood fiend's leather was cut open by the black longsword. The black longsword slashed past his waist. Pa pa pa! The Flame Kingdom's second Metamorphosis King level expert retreated continuously and only stopped after a while. A bloody wound appeared on his waist, and fresh blood seeped out from the wound. After all, he was a twice Metamorphosis King class elite. Even if he wasn't a King class elite that specialized in defense, Gray's strike was only a light wound. Even so, he was still extremely furious. As a King-level expert who had undergone a second transformation, he had actually been injured by a level 3 Desolation level youngster. To him, this was simply a humiliation. Gray Fergus! He gnashed his teeth and called out Gray's name. Then, he rushed towards Gray at top speed. Just as he was about to reach Gray, he suddenly made a turn and circled around to Gray's back. Then, he thrust his gun at Gray's back. Against the opponent's speed, which was at the peak of his second-tier King class, Gray was unable to dodge. The opponent's spear pierced his back. Pung! The black armor once again took the hit, greatly weakening the power of the spear. In the end, the heat and impact transmitted to Gray's body were blocked by Gray's defense, which had reached the peak of the first metamorphosis. Whoosh! Gray, who had completely let down his guard, turned around with a cold smile. His long sword, which was wrapped in black mist, swept towards the Flame Kingdom's twice Metamorphosis King class elite. This time, the Flame Kingdom's twice Metamorphosis King class elite was prepared. He quickly retreated and dodged the sword. However, after dodging the sword, his expression became extremely serious. He had already noticed that Gray wasn't affected much by his previous 2 attacks. Although the power of Gray's attack was a level lower than his, it was enough to contend with him with his defense, which was difficult for him to damage. Boom, boom, boom. The 2 of them continued to exchange blows. The wind created by the battle even affected some of the weaker kings. They were injured and sent flying by the wind. The 2 of them continued to fight until they reached the square. Gray Fergus is fighting with someone. As one of the most eye-catching people among the younger generation, Gray's appearance on the square had already attracted the attention of the people from the 4 kingdoms, especially the younger generation. Who's fighting with him? His combat power is so strong. Every attack is like a sun blooming. A young man from the Purple Moon Kingdom was puzzled and surprised. Lord Garfield, that's Lord Garfield, who has reached the 2nd Metamorphosis King class. A young man from the Flame Kingdom exclaimed with a face full of surprise. Grey Fergus was actually able to contend with Lord Garfield, who had reached the second Metamorphosis King class, and wasn't at a disadvantage. Were their eyes playing tricks on them? How could Grey Fergus's combat power be so strong? He can actually contend with a second Metamorphosis King class elite. On the square, all of the younger generation who knew that Grey was fighting with a King class elite could not help but be shocked with a trace of bitterness. As people of the same generation, the gap between them and Grey was so huge. Grey was already able to contend with his second Metamorphosis King class elite, while they had not even reached the King class. Such a huge gap made them feel deeply helpless. Was such a person really in the same generation as them? Damn it! He can already contend with me with the combat armor he's wearing. The more they fought, the more the Flame Kingdom's second Metamorphosis King class elite was shocked. He could naturally see that a large part of the reason why Grey was able to withstand his attacks was because of the black combat armor he was wearing. The combat armor could withstand the attack of a second Metamorphosis King class elite and weaken the power of his attacks. In the end, Grey Fergus's attacks were easily blocked by Grey Fergus. Although he's relying on the combat armor, he still has the power to contend with his second Metamorphosis King class elite. After a series of exchanges, his opponent was unable to do anything to him. Grey was relieved. With the black combat armor's defense and his own defense, he already had the power to contend with his second Metamorphosis King class elite. This time, his biggest gain was not the silver metal ball he had just obtained, but the black combat armor he was wearing. His defense was already extremely strong, and with this set of armor, his defense was even more terrifying. In addition, the armor had the ability to reduce the impact of impact, so he had the ability to fight against a king-level beast tamer who had undergone the second metamorphosis. Boom! After another exchange, Grey and the Flame Kingdom's second Metamorphosis King class elite both retreated. Just as Grey thought that the Flame Kingdom's second Metamorphosis King class elite would attack again, something unexpected happened. The Flame Kingdom's second Metamorphosis King class elite took the initiative to retreat. In reality, the Flame Kingdom's second Metamorphosis King class elite was helpless. He had attacked Grey because he felt that if Grey continued to grow, he would be a great threat to the Flame Kingdom. On the other hand, he wanted to take the silver metal ball that Grey had obtained. However, after realizing that even if he attacked with all his strength, he could not do anything to Grey and could not take the silver metal ball, fighting became meaningless. Naturally, he did not plan to continue fighting with Grey. He did not pursue the Flame Kingdom's second Metamorphosis King class elite. Although Grey's current overall strength was enough to contend with his opponent, he could not do anything to his opponent, just as his opponent could not do anything to him. The reason he had been able to injure his opponent in the beginning was because of his opponent's carelessness. After his opponent became alert, he could no longer attack and leave a wound on his opponent's body. Grey looked at the place where the battle was most intense. Boom, boom, boom. That was the battlefield of 5 people. It was the place where the 4 kingdoms and the 5th faction's third Metamorphosis King class elite were fighting. The 5 of them fought along the way. Just like Grey and the Flame Kingdom's second Metamorphosis King class elite, the battle had reached the plaza. In the middle of them, there was a battle blade that looked like it had been poured with gold. It was stuck in the black jade ground. There were many times when one of the 5 wanted to reach out and grab the battle blade, but they were attacked by the others. As a result, the battle blade remained stuck in the ground for a long time, without anyone being able to pull it out. They had fought to the point of madness. Their battle strength was at its peak, and it could even be said that they did not care about anything else. After all, it was very likely that this was a gold weapon. With them as the center, a terrifying shockwave spread out. If the tomb had not been reinforced by the runes, the entire tomb would have collapsed by now. Even so, one could still clearly see that as they fought, the floor of the tomb was damaged one after another. Under the terrifying shock waves, the weakest people had already retreated to the edge of the plaza, ready to escape to the upper floor at any time. This was the battle between the 5 strongest people in the entire continent. If this continues, none of us will be able to get it. The 3 of us will work together. After we get it, the 3 of us will keep it safe. Blair Blaze looked at Jennifer Austin and the Scarlet Kingdom's third Metamorphosis King class elite, Lennon Scarlet. The Four Kingdoms and the Fifth Faction all wanted a weapon that was suspected to be a gold weapon. Because of this reason, the Three Kingdoms, who were originally allies, fought separately. Therefore, even though there were three of them, they still could not gain the upper hand when fighting with Blair Blaze and the Fifth Faction's third Metamorphosis King class elite. How will it be kept? The Scarlet Kingdom's third Metamorphosis King class elite, Lennon Scarlet, asked. Each kingdom will keep it for 10 years. Blair Blaze said, Okay. Jennifer Austin and Lennon Scarlet nodded in agreement. Then, they looked at each other and each pounced on a person. Whoosh! Jennifer Austin was holding an exquisite battle axe. The battle axe was wrapped in yellow light as she pounced towards Burrell's raging flames. Crackle! Lennon Scarlet held a crimson longsword that was wrapped in crimson lightning as he pounced on the Fifth Faction's third Metamorphosis King class elite. Chapter 551. Whoosh! As Jennifer Austin and Lennon Scarlet rushed towards Blair Blaze and the Fifth Faction's thrice-transformed King Tier, Diphony Violet rushed out. The speed of a thrice-transformed King Tier burst forth. Clad in gray battle armor, his figure turned into a gray phantom as he rushed towards the golden saber. Not good. The thrice-transformed King Tier from the Fifth Faction saw Diphony Violet rushing towards the saber and immediately prepared to rush towards the saber. Unfortunately, although his defense was strong, he had only just entered the third stage of the King Tier. His combat power was weaker than Lennon Scarlet's, and he was completely suppressed by Lennon Scarlet. On the other side, seeing Diphony Violet rushing towards the golden saber, Blair Blaze snorted coldly. The golden flames on his spear rippled, and then he attacked Jennifer Austin with his spear. Boom! A terrifying explosion occurred. Jennifer Austin was forced back by the powerful impact. Blair Blaze took the opportunity to get rid of Jennifer Austin and rushed towards the saber as well. As a thrice-metamorphosed peak regent, in addition to the fact that the blood technique he cultivated was more destructive and faster than the average special blood technique, Blair Blaze unleashed a powerful combat strength and forced Jennifer Austin to retreat. Whoosh! Whoosh! Diphony Violet and Blair Blaze rushed towards the saber from different directions. The distance between the two of them and the saber was almost the same. Originally, based on the time, Diphony Violet should have been the first to obtain the golden saber. Although Blair Blaze had gotten rid of Jennifer Austin, he was still a little late because he was intercepted by Jennifer Austin. However, the blood technique that Blair Blaze cultivated had reached the peak of the same level in terms of speed. He was much faster than Diphony Violet, so it was uncertain who would obtain the saber in the end. Who will get the saber? Seeing the two people rushing towards the saber, those who understood the value of the saber could not help but watch nervously. Some of the King Tier fighters who were fighting even stopped because of this. Even Gray could not help but watch nervously. A saber suspected to be a gold weapon was too valuable. Its impact on the future of the world would be extremely huge. A gold weapon was a weapon above a silver weapon. Its power was extremely terrifying. If a thrice-transformed King Tier fighter wielded this weapon, it was not impossible for him to unleash combat power beyond that of a King Tier fighter. It could be said that such a weapon was enough to determine the strength of the Four Kingdoms in the future. Under the gaze of almost everyone, a withered hand grabbed the hilt and pulled the golden saber out. It's Lord Diphony. Lord Diphony got the saber. That's great. The withered hand's owner was dressed in gray armor. It was Diphony Violet, a thrice-evolved king of the Purple Moon Kingdom. Seeing that Diphony Violet had obtained the saber, everyone in the Three Kingdoms could not help but feel excited. With this suspected gold weapon, the Three Kingdoms would become even more powerful. In the future, they would no longer have to worry about the threat from the Flame Kingdom. Instead, it was the Flame Kingdom that they had to worry about. Shwa! Grabbing the golden saber, Diphony Violet slashed in the direction of Blair Blaze. Under his blade, a purple flame attacked. Because of the terrifying high temperature, ripples appeared in the air. The black jade ground that was reinforced by runes melted into magma. and a purple tongue of flame attacked Blair. Raging flame. Lord Blair, be careful. Seeing this purple flame, everyone in the Flame Kingdom could not help but cry out in alarm. Blair Blaze, who was facing this purple flame, had a grave expression. An extreme sense of danger floated in his heart. Whoosh! With a burst of speed, he quickly dodged to the side. His body suddenly moved dozens of meters to the side. Unfortunately, in order to fight for the saber, he was too close to Typhony Violet. Facing such a close attack, even with his terrifying speed, he could not completely dodge it. The purple fiery snake brushed past his left arm. Even though it was just a brush, the battle armor on his left arm was instantly scorched black. Pooh! It brushed past Brel Raging Flame's left arm, and the purple flame spread all the way until it finally hit the wall. Suddenly, a huge crack that was dozens of meters wide appeared, and one could even see outside. The runes of the entire tomb suddenly collapsed. Is this a magic light level battle power? Gray did not know if this was a magic light level battle power. After all, he had never seen a magic light level powerhouse attack. However, he was certain that the power of this attack surpassed even that of Blair Blaze, who was the strongest person present. Many people were just as confused as him. Among the people present, no one had ever seen a magic light level powerhouse attack. After all, magic light level powerhouses had disappeared for thousands of years. However, the attack of the Golden Saber was extremely powerful. That was certain. Although this attack injured Blair Blaze, it was not enough to kill Blair Blaze. Purple flames wrapped around Typhony Violet's saber as she prepared to attack again. At this moment, Kacha, Kacha, Kacha. Suddenly, a dense series of crisp sounds rang out. Then, cracks appeared on the floor, walls, and ceiling of the room. Large pieces of stone quickly fell down. Not good. The tomb is about to collapse. Everyone's expression changed. Those whose strength had not reached the king stage were even more terrified as they ran toward the crack created by the saber. The tomb was collapsing. The king stage powerhouses should be able to survive, but those below the king stage were likely to die here. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. At this moment, all the king stage powerhouses no longer cared about fighting. They all ran toward the people from their respective kingdoms, one in each hand, and quickly ran toward the crack. Those below the king stage who could appear here were either descendants of the royal families of their respective kingdoms with potential or were the backbone of their respective kingdoms' royal families. If there were heavy casualties, it would be a huge wave for the four kingdoms. It would definitely cause a serious gap in strength. Whoosh! Gray also quickly ran toward the Purple Moon Kingdom. He grabbed two people from the Purple Moon Kingdom and quickly ran toward the crack. Originally, he wanted to save Francis, Sophia, and Hylia. However, the three of them were direct descendants of the Wong clan with great potential in the Purple Moon Kingdom. They were prioritized by the king stage powerhouses of the Purple Moon Kingdom. They were taken away by the king stage powerhouses as soon as possible. Therefore, he casually grabbed two descendants of the royal family who came with him this time. Boom! Not long after the group of king stage powerhouses rushed out with the people from their respective kingdoms, a loud noise sounded behind them. The tomb that was like a small mountain suddenly collapsed and completely collapsed. A large amount of dust was stirred up. If they had been a little slower, everyone would have been buried alive. Thank you. Seeing the collapsed tomb, the two descendants of the royal family who were saved by Gray thanked Gray profusely with cold sweat dripping down their foreheads. With their speed, it was impossible for them to rush out of the tomb before it collapsed. If it were not for Gray, they would probably have died in the tomb. Gray shook his head slightly. With his relationship with the royal family of the Purple Moon Kingdom, it was naturally impossible for him to not save the people of the Purple Moon Kingdom's royal family when he saw them. The fifth force has already retreated. The Flame Kingdom wants to escape. After the dust settled, Gray scanned the crowd and immediately realized that the fifth force had disappeared. The people of the Flame Kingdom were also retreating. Now that Typhony Violet had obtained a war blade that was suspected to be a gold weapon, her battle strength had increased tremendously. The Flame Kingdom obviously knew that they had no chance of winning, so they immediately ran away after rushing out. Flame Kingdom, stay. Gray was not the only one who realized that the Flame Kingdom was escaping. Now that Diphony Violet had a powerful weapon and had the advantage in battle strength, the other three kingdoms could not help but intercept the people of the Flame Kingdom. Split up and run. Facing the three kingdoms' interception, the people of the Flame Kingdom paled. Blair Blaze's face was pale. After giving the order, he held up his spear and intercepted the people of the three kingdoms. Whoosh! The golden flaming claw lashed out and attacked the people from the three kingdoms who were trying to intercept them. However, at this moment, a purple fire snake appeared and the golden flaming claw immediately collapsed. Moreover, the purple fire snake did not decrease in power and attacked Blair Blaze, who was behind the golden flaming claw. Whoosh! Blair Blaze's face was solemn. He exploded with his fastest speed and dodged the purple fire tongue before it reached him. As a thrice metamorphosed peak king-level warrior whose speed could reach the peak of the same realm, if he had enough distance and was prepared, he could dodge the purple fire tongue. Of course, it was extremely thrilling. Puff! The purple fire that Blair Blaze dodged left a magma river on the ground. Behind him, a king-level warrior of the Flame Kingdom who could not dodge in time was immediately turned into charcoal under the purple fire. He did not even have the chance to make a sound before he fell straight down dead. Diphony Violet. Blair Blaze's eyes were wide open as he gritted his teeth. Every king-level combatant was extremely precious. One of them had already died in the graveyard, and now another one had died. You should worry about yourself first. At this moment, an earthy yellow light and a crimson bolt of lightning attacked Blair's raging flames. Jennifer Austin and Lennon Scarlet attacked Blair Blaze from two other directions. Both of them had killing intent on their faces. Clearly, they were prepared to cooperate with Diphony Violet and kill Blair Blaze here. Whoosh! 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 Blair Blaze himself was in great danger. Naturally, he no longer had the power to stop the three kingdoms from chasing the people of the Flame Kingdom. Whoosh! Gray aimed at a young blonde figure and quickly chased after him. This person was Niklos Blaze. Chapter 552. Whoosh! Gray chased after Niklos Blaze as fast as he could, but the distance between him and Niklos Blaze was increasing. Gray's speed was only at the first stage of the king level, while Niklos Blaze's speed was at the peak of the first stage of the king level. In terms of speed, Gray was not as fast as Niklos Blaze. However, since Gray chased after Niklos Blaze, he naturally had the confidence to make him stay. Whoosh! As Gray ran, a giant blade made of black mist slashed forward at Niklos Blaze. Whoosh! Feeling the sharp aura coming from his back, Niklos Blaze was startled. He quickly moved to the side, barely dodging the giant blade made of black mist. In front of him, where the giant blade had slashed through, a trace that extended for 2,000 meters appeared. He looked at the terrifying mark with lingering fear and continued to run forward. However, in the next moment, another sharp aura attacked him from behind. He quickly moved to the side and dodged. Whoosh! 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 Gray slashed out the black mist giant blade. Although it did not injure Niklos Blaze, it prevented him from escaping at full speed. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Gray caught up with Niklos Blaze. Gray Fergus. Looking at Gray, Niklos Blaze's expression was complicated and even a little jealous. Gray had become stronger step by step under his watch and eventually surpassed him. Gray's talent made him feel fear. Even if he did not want to admit it, he had to admit that Gray's talent was above his. Niklos Blaze, I don't believe anyone will save you this time. Gray looked at Niklos Blaze and said, back in the tomb, if it wasn't for the appearance of the second metamorphosis king-level expert of the Fire Kingdom, he would have already killed Niklos Blaze. This time, the other king-level experts of the Fire Kingdom couldn't even take care of themselves. He didn't think that there would be anyone who could rush over to save Niklos Blaze. Attacking me? Aren't you afraid of the Flame Kingdom's revenge? Niklos Blaze said in a low voice. If I don't attack you, the Flame Kingdom won't take revenge? Do you think the Flame Kingdom will have a chance to take revenge after this? Gray sneered. Facing the three kingdoms that had obtained a suspected gold weapon and had greatly increased their power, the Flame Kingdom would definitely suffer heavy losses after this. Even if they were not destroyed, they would not have the ability to take revenge. Whoosh! Gray said no more. In front of him, a large amount of black mist gushed out and turned into waves. Wave after wave, they attacked Nicholas Flame. Everything on the ground, including the rocks, trees, and weeds, was annihilated. The sense of danger made Nicholas Blaze's hair stand on end. At the critical moment, he increased his speed and stepped into the void to avoid the attack. However, Gray's attack did not stop there. Soon, a huge black fog vortex appeared and engulfed a large area in the sky. With a strong gust of wind, it was difficult for him to avoid it. Boom! In the void, a terrifying explosion occurred. The black fog and golden flames sputtered in all directions. The ground looked like it had been bombarded by cannonballs. In the midst of the explosion, Nicholas Inferno was not injured at all and quickly fled far away. Did he use his blood skill? Gray immediately deduced the reason. With Nicholas Inferno's combat strength, he naturally wouldn't be able to block his attack that was at the second stage of the Regent tier under normal circumstances. The only reason he could block it was because he had used a blood skill to increase his combat strength. Can you escape? Gray sneered. He activated his blood force and released the King Claw Beast. He jumped onto the back of the King Claw Beast and commanded it to chase after Nicholas Blaze. As a blood beast that was ranked at the top in terms of speed among King-tier blood beasts, the King Claw Beast speed was definitely not slower than Nicholas Blaze's. In addition, Nicholas Blaze's blood mastery was different from the Berserk blood mastery it possessed. It could only amplify combat strength, but not speed. It was impossible for Nicholas Blaze to widen the distance between them. Whoosh! Standing on the King Claw Beast, Gray swung his sword. A giant black fog blade swiftly attacked Nicholas Blaze in the sky. Sensing the movement behind him, Nicholas Blaze quickly ran forward while turning his head. The golden flames on his spear turned into a giant flame claw to block the giant black fog blade. Boom! The giant black fog blade was blocked. The giant flame claw's power was the same as the giant black fog blade. It was also a second stage king level attack. Obviously, Nicholas Blaze had used his blood skill. Let's see how long you can last. Gray did not care at all. He was very familiar with blood skills. Naturally, he knew that Nicholas Blaze could not last long. Boom, boom, boom. The two of them fought as they chased. Soon, they were more than 10 miles away from the graveyard. If this continues, I'll definitely die. Seeing that Gray was riding on the King Claw Beast and was not slowing down, Nicholas Blaze's heart raced. He knew that if this continued, he would die when his blood force was exhausted. He gritted his teeth and stopped running. Instead, he turned around and rushed toward Gray. Whoosh! Flames wrapped around the spear. Then, a giant golden flame pillar shot down from the sky toward Gray. Not running anymore, Gray sneered. He swung his sword. The black fog turned into a giant fog vortex and met the giant flame pillar. Boom! The two collided, releasing golden and black light. The ground around them was full of craters from the aftermath of the explosion. And with this place as the center, the trees were all swept by the strong wind and snapped one after another. Whoosh! Nicholas Blaze was like a lone wolf in a desperate situation. His eyes were filled with killing intent as he quickly approached Gray. Whoosh! Gray slashed out a black fog toward his opponent. However, his opponent dodged it with his speed. Then, he stabbed his spear and a flame pillar attacked. Unexpectedly, his main target was not Gray, but the King Claw Beast under Gray's feet. You want to destroy the King Claw Beast so that I can't catch up with you? Gray sneered. He ordered the King Claw Beast in his mind. The next moment, the King Claw Beast's huge body moved at an extraordinary speed and dodged the golden flame pillar. At its original position, there was a trace of soil melting. Whoosh! At this moment, Nicholas Blaze appeared from the side. His spear was wrapped in golden flames and emitted a terrifying heat. He stabbed the King Claw Beast's head. Whoosh! The sword in Gray's hand was wrapped in black fog. It turned into a few meters long and met the spear head-on. Clang! The spear and the sword collided, releasing a terrifying shock wave. Niklow's blaze and Gray's king claw beast combination could not help but be pushed back by the shock wave. However, at the next moment, whether it was Niklow's blaze or Gray's combination, they could not help but stabilize their bodies and rush toward each other. Clang, clang, clang. A series of collisions rang out. Nicholas Blaze's spear and Gray's long sword collided one after another, sending out shockwaves one after another. Under the shockwaves, the surrounding soil was shaved off layer by layer. Unknowingly, the ground in the area they were in had become sunken. Puff! After a series of exchanges, Nicholas Blaze finally seized the opportunity and stabbed his spear into the King Claw beast's body. Although he did not pierce the King Claw beast's head and only its abdomen, the terrifying heat caused the King Claw beast to be seriously injured. A strong, burnt smell spread out. Puff! At the same time, a huge black sword swept across Nicholas Blaze's body. A deep wound appeared on Nicholas Blaze's abdomen, and he flew backward. I fail. Nicholas Blaze's spear touched the ground. A large amount of blood flowed out from his abdomen. Facing Gray's second-stage king attack, he was also seriously injured. Not only did he fail to kill the King Claw beast, but he was also seriously injured. He knew that he had no hope of escaping. Even if I die, I will drag you down with me. A crazed look appeared in his eyes. He endured the pain all over his body and charged again. This time, his target was Gray. Golden flames dyed the tip of the spear golden, as if a golden flower had bloomed. He gave up on defense and stabbed his spear at Gray. You can't do it. In the face of Nicholas Inferno's desperate attack, Gray remained calm. With a sweep of his black greatsword, he had already blocked the attack and forced Nicholas Inferno to retreat. Clang, clang, clang. Nicholas Blaze kept retreating. He was seriously injured and had lost a lot of blood. His reaction had become slow. Although the King Claw beast under Gray's feet was also seriously injured, it was still a controlled object. As long as its brain was not damaged, its mobility would not be affected. Even if its body was severely injured, it would not be affected. Under Gray's command, the King Claw beast rushed toward Nicholas Blaze as if it was not injured. Gray's sword also stabbed forward quickly. Puff! The black sword pierced Nicholas Blaze's chest. Nicholas Blaze's eyes were filled with unwillingness. Blood flowed from the corner of his mouth as his body slowly fell down. Gray jumped down from the King Claw beast and walked over with a complicated look on his face. He did not regret killing Nicholas Blaze. The enmity between them could not be resolved. However, he felt that it was a pity for Nicholas Blaze's talent. Nicholas Blaze's talent could be called number one among the younger generation. It was almost certain that he would become a peak king-tier triple metamorphosis. Unfortunately, he was on the opposite side, so he had no choice but to kill him. As he approached, Gray found that Nicholas Blaze was already dead. He had been seriously injured before, and now that Gray had stabbed him in the heart, he had died almost immediately. Gray stepped forward and put away Nicholas Blaze's spear. He then took Nicholas Blaze's rune portal bag. After looking around and confirming that there was no one else, Gray pressed one hand on Nicholas Blaze's head and activated his resurrection ability. There was a slight trembling sound, and an invisible wave spread out. However, the wave soon disappeared. The resurrection ability had failed. As expected, I've reached the upper limit. Gray raised his eyebrows and stood up. According to his estimation, the resurrection ability should be able to control 20 desolate grades or 4 king tiers. Up until now, he had used the resurrection ability to resurrect 2 king tiers, 6 desolate grades, and many barbarian grades and below. This was obviously the upper limit of the resurrection ability. He was not able to resurrect king tiers, so his resurrection this time was a complete failure. Chapter 553. What a pity! Gray shook his head slightly. He felt that it was a pity that such a talented person couldn't be resurrected with his resurrection ability. Of course, if he really had to resurrect Nicholas Blaze, it wasn't that there was no other way. He just had to kill a king-level combatant. However, he wouldn't do that. Although the people he resurrected were under his control, they had their own thoughts and were no different from ordinary people. If he killed them, it would be no different from killing a normal person. Moreover, these people were loyal to him. Even if it was the Ice King beast, Gray didn't want to kill it. The Ice King beast that was resurrected by his resurrection ability was like his own beast. It was extremely attached to him, and their relationship was even more intimate than ordinary beasts. No matter what, Gray couldn't kill it. Gray put Niklos Blaze's corpse into the rune space bag that contained the King of Assassins' corpse. For the time being, he hadn't thought about what to do with the corpse. Gray couldn't use his resurrection ability, and he didn't want to use his corpse-controlling ability. The blood technique that Niklos Blaze cultivated wasn't a physical-type blood technique. If he used his corpse-controlling ability to resurrect it, its battle power would be weaker than an ordinary king-level blood beast. There was really no need to control it. Using his reverse nurturing ability to heal the King Claw Beast's injuries, Gray ordered the King Claw Beast to return to the cemetery. He sat on the King Claw Beast and took out Niklos Blaze's rune space bag to check his gains. In the rune space bag, the most eye-catching things were bottles of potions that seemed to contain raging flames. It was the Raging Flame Potion. There are actually more than 50 bottles. He's really not ordinary rich. After a rough count, Gray couldn't help but be secretly speechless. The Raging Flame Potion could be said to be one of the top auxiliary potions in the 4 Great Kingdoms. Each bottle was extremely valuable and couldn't be bought with money. He didn't expect Niklos Blaze to have more than 50 bottles. One could only imagine how rich he was. My cultivation for the next 5 years is settled. More than 50 bottles of Raging Flame Potion, plus the Purple Moon Potion he had left, were enough to ensure that he wouldn't lack auxiliary potions for the next 5 years. Gray continued to look at the other items in the interspatial bag. Judging from the volume, there should be more than 100,000 magic coins. If converted to gold coins, it would be more than 10 million, which was a good harvest. Gray continued to look at other items. Soon, he saw a long sword without a scabbard, but the hilt was exquisitely decorated. He took out the long sword. The length of the sword should be about 167 meters. The body of the sword was silver white and wide. The hilt of the sword was decorated with hexagonal rubies. It looked as exquisite as a work of art. Gray infused his wind attribute energy into his sword. With a slash of his sword, a huge wind blade appeared, leaving a huge crack in the ground. This is a silver weapon. From the amplification of the Blood Fiend's abilities, Gray immediately determined that this was a silver-grade weapon. Logically speaking, such a precious silver-grade weapon shouldn't be without a hilt. Could it be that it was obtained from the tomb? Every silver-grade weapon was extremely valuable. It was impossible for the person who obtained it not to equip it with a scabbard. The only explanation was that this silver-grade weapon was obtained from the tomb and didn't have the time to equip it with a scabbard. Moreover, even though Niklos Blaze had a noble status, Gray didn't think that the royal family of the Flame Kingdom would equip him with 2 silver-grade weapons. Moreover, one of them was a sword-type weapon. One must know that Niklos Blaze used a gun. Therefore, this sword was very likely obtained from the tomb. Gray also guessed that it was very likely obtained from the hands of those sculptures. Gray continued to look at other items. A large number of clothes were used as a change of clothes, a set of battle equipment that should be used as a backup, several bottles of high-grade healing potions, and a large number of exquisite works of art. This is... A container made of adamantine attracted Gray's attention. Gray carefully examined it. This was a container with a capacity of several liters. On the side of the container, there were words. When he saw the words, Gray couldn't help but exclaim, "Devilish poison dragon blood. It's actually devilish poison dragon blood." Gray's face couldn't help but blossom with joy. Currently, he had already reached the 3rd level of the Desolate rank. At most, he should be able to break through to the King rank in a year. After reaching the King rank, if he wanted to increase his rank, there were only 2 options left. One was to find evolution herbs and combine them with blood techniques to increase his bloodline. However, the rarity of evolution herbs was obvious. Although Gray's current strength and influence weren't weak, obtaining them depended on luck. The other was to find the blood of a magic light rank blood fiend and consume the blood of a polished rank blood fiend to evolve and obtain the magic light rank blood fiend. The best method was naturally the latter, which was to consume evolution herbs. Evolution herbs were difficult to obtain, and they couldn't be obtained overnight. During the process, one would have to consume evolution herbs several times to increase his bloodline to the magic light rank. If he consumed the blood of a magic light rank blood fiend, he would be able to obtain the magic light rank blood fiend bloodline in one go. This would save him a lot of trouble. During this exploration of the tomb, Gray wanted to obtain the blood of a magic light rank blood fiend the most. However, he hadn't been able to find it along the way. Just as he had given up hope, he unexpectedly found the blood of a magic light rank blood fiend in Niklos Blaze's runic space. This bottle of blood should have come from the tomb. The owner of the tomb practiced the poison lizard sequence blood art. This magic light rank blood fiend blood art also belonged to the poison lizard sequence. Therefore, Gray guessed that this bottle of magic light rank blood fiend blood art came from the tomb. Gray moved his gaze away from the poison demonic dragon and looked at the other items. There were a large number of gems, red, yellow, blue, and green. Every one of them was an extremely valuable runic material. In addition, there were also a large number of miscellaneous items. Gray glanced at them and found that they were of average value. He had finished inspecting the rune space bag. At this time, Gray had also arrived near the tomb. The battle had already ended. What came into view was a barren ground that extended for several miles. On the ground, there were cracks after cracks, magma that had melted and solidified, and scorch marks one after another. Gray jumped off the King Claw beast and put it away before walking towards Francis, Sophia, and Hylia. How was it? Did you kill Blair Blaze? No, he escaped. He was too fast. Even Lord Tefuni and the other two couldn't stop him. However, his injuries weren't light. Francis shook his head regretfully. Was the weapon that Lord Tefuni obtained a gold weapon? Gray asked curiously. It shouldn't be wrong. Judging from the characteristics after activation, it is more than 90% similar to the descriptions of gold weapons in the books of the Empire. Sophia said with a happy expression. We're the plans of the three kingdoms. They are preparing to attack the Flame Kingdom. Right now, Lord Tefuni and the others are discussing the alliance of the three kingdoms. Francis said with a murderous tone. I saw you chasing after Niklos Blaze just now. What happened? Hylia asked from the side. Gray took out the rune space bag and released Niklos Blaze's corpse. I can't believe you actually killed him. Seeing Niklos Blaze's corpse, the three couldn't help but look at each other. Although they knew that Gray already had the strength to kill Niklos Blaze, they still couldn't help but be slightly surprised when they saw Niklos Blaze's corpse. After killing Niklos Blaze, Gray could now be said to be the undisputed number one of the younger generation. The Flame Kingdom's losses this time are not ordinary. The three couldn't help but sigh at the Flame Kingdom's losses this time. Even Niklos Blaze, a disciple with boundless potential, had died here. Adding the other people from the Flame Kingdom who were killed, even if the Flame Kingdom survived this crisis, there would be a gap in strength in the future. With Gray's strength, he was already qualified to participate in the meeting of the three kings, but Gray didn't participate. He wasn't very interested in this meeting, but he was quite interested in going to the Flame Kingdom. He originally thought that he wouldn't have the opportunity to enter the Flame Kingdom in this lifetime. But now it seemed that not only would he have the opportunity to enter the Flame Kingdom, but he might even be able to witness the destruction of the Flame Kingdom. And the reason for all this was just because of Tomb. He couldn't help but sigh at the extraordinariness of this tomb. Not only did it contain a large amount of wealth that even kings would be envious of, but it also determined the future of the four kingdoms. After returning to his tent, Gray began to check his harvest from this time's exploration of the tomb. Several bottles of 1,000-year-old red wine, precious magic materials enough to make 5 or 6 silver-grade weapons, and a piece of armor that was worth more than a silver-grade weapon. These were all the known gains. Next was the harvest from the final tomb. Because of the special circumstances in the final tomb, he stuffed almost everything he saw into the purple ring. As for what exactly he got, even he wasn't sure. Gray first took out 5 weapons. These were the 5 weapons that were placed on the weapons rack in the tomb. A knife, a long sword, a battle axe, a spear, and a dagger suitable for assassination. The 5 weapons were of different colors, and each of them looked extremely exquisite. It made people have the impulse to place them in the hall and treat them as works of art. However, Gray was sure that these 5 weapons weren't works of art. He picked up the 5 weapons one by one and infused them with energy to check the amplification effect of the 5 weapons. They are indeed silver-grade weapons. The results made Gray excited. All 5 weapons were silver-grade weapons, including the 2 that Nichols has, the one that the King of Assassins has, and the 2 that I already have. I have a total of 10 silver-grade weapons in my possession. Even Gray couldn't help but sigh at how rich he was now. He had 10 silver-grade weapons, while a duke's family like the Nahum family only had 1 silver-grade weapon. The comparison was enough to show how rich he was now. He was able to have so many silver-grade weapons because of his current combat power. 5 of the weapons were obtained by killing opponents, and each of them was enough to wipe out the Nahum family before the return of the king-level masters. Secondly, it was because of the wealth of the owner of this tomb. If he hadn't encountered such a rich tomb, he wouldn't have been able to obtain 5 silver-grade weapons. However, he wasn't the one with the greatest harvest. The one with the greatest harvest was the royal family of the Purple Moon Kingdom. The value of a gold-grade weapon was definitely far greater than all the silver-grade weapons in his possession. Of course, the ownership of this weapon was highly controversial. In theory, this weapon should belong to the royal family of the 3 kingdoms, and it was very likely that it would be jointly safeguarded by the royal family of the 3 kingdoms. Chapter 554. After putting away the 5 silver weapons, Gray waved his hand, and a red sandalwood chest inlaid with sapphires appeared. Opening the chest, a large amount of jewelry appeared in front of Gray's eyes. There were rings inlaid with sapphires, large pearl necklaces, exquisite purple gemstone earrings. These weren't magic weapons, but ordinary jewelry. Of course, from the degree of delicacy, they should have been made by a master jeweler. They should have been extremely sought after during the Empire. However, to Gray, these jewelry had no other use except for the women of the Fergus family. After returning to the castle, I'll let Sarah and Caroline choose a few pieces each. The rest will be thrown into the secret chamber of the Fergus family. After thinking about the arrangement of this chest of jewelry, Gray put away the jewelry and took out a red sandalwood chest inlaid with rubies. Opening the red sandalwood chest, he saw dozens of crystal vessels. All of them were polished with high-grade crystals and had different shapes and sizes. There were large bottles with small mouths at the bottom, shaped like awls, and slender oval at the bottom. Gray had seen such vessels in Master Tulu's alchemy room where he lived in the Fergus family. They were all vessels used for alchemy. There's actually a whole set of high-grade alchemy vessels. Could the owner of the tomb be an alchemist? After putting away the red sandalwood chest, Gray couldn't help but secretly guess the identity of the owner of the tomb. After looking at several items, Gray found that they were all extremely valuable, but not very useful to him. He took out the bookshelf he got from the tomb. The bookshelf was divided into 2 levels. Thick books were neatly arranged one after another. There were dozens of books in total. He took out the first book on the left and looked at the name of the book. Magic Herbs. The name of the book was Magic Herbs, and after opening it, he saw one type of magic herbs after another. The book recorded in great detail the properties of the magic herbs and their growing environment. There were even drawings of their appearance. Gray put down the book and took out another one. The title of the book was Compendium of Medicinal Herbs, Volume 1. Gray flipped through it and found that it recorded a large amount of common herbs. These herbs weren't as valuable as the magic herbs, but they were the most common and commonly used herbs. It seems that the owner of the tomb was very likely an alchemist. After flipping through several more books, Gray found that they were all related to herbs. He was sure that the owner of the tomb was an alchemist, but he didn't know how good he was at alchemy. Furlent's notes. After flipping through one book after another, A book called Ferlent's Notes caught Gray's attention. This book was not thick, but in Gray's view, it was the most valuable because this book recorded the formulas of magic potions. The whole book had a total of more than a dozen formulas of magic potions. Among the formulas, except for the Blood Dragon potion, Gray had never heard of the other potions. However, just the introduction of the potion's effects had already made Gray realize the value of these potions. In the end, Gray roughly flipped through these dozens of books and found that they were all books related to alchemy. It's a pity that I don't have the ability to remember everything I read. Otherwise, I would really want to learn alchemy. Gray was still very interested in alchemy. His rapid improvement in strength in the past 2 years was largely due to the auxiliary cultivation potions. However, such potions did not have a stable source. They were either obtained from trading with the royal family of the Purple Moon Kingdom, or from the secret rooms he explored, or from the opponents he killed. There was no guarantee that there would be a stable supply. If he could refine magic potions, coupled with the formulas in Ferlent's Notes, he would have an endless supply of auxiliary cultivation resources in the future, but at least he would have a source. It was a pity that he didn't have the ability to remember everything he read. It wasn't that he couldn't become an alchemist without a photographic memory, but to achieve great success in alchemy, he had to have the ability to remember everything he read. Gray obviously didn't want to become an ordinary alchemist because that was meaningless to him. If he wanted to become a true alchemist, he had to have a photographic memory. I wonder if I can meet a blood fiend with a photographic memory in the future. So far, Gray hadn't met a blood fiend with a photographic memory. He didn't know if such a blood fiend existed. If he could meet one, he would have the opportunity to become an alchemist. Should I give Ferlent's potion refining notes to Master Tulu? Gray once again picked up Ferlent's alchemy notes, which contained the magic potion formula, and hesitated. Of the dozen or so mana potions listed, Gray had only heard of the Blood Dragon potion, and it was this potion that made Gray realize the value of these dozen or so potions. The Blood Dragon potion was more valuable than the Purple Moon potion and the Flame potion. If it was placed together with the Blood Dragon potion, it was very likely to be of the same value. Gray didn't feel at ease handing over such a precious potion to Master Tulu. On one hand, Gray was worried that Tulu wouldn't be able to refine it with his alchemy skills. On the other hand, Gray didn't trust Tulu enough to hand over such a precious potion formula. Although Tulu was staying with the Fergus family, he didn't have any contract with the Fergus family and could leave at any time. Under such circumstances, Gray didn't feel at ease handing over such a precious potion formula. In a hidden manner in the Jewel Kingdom, the 4 members of the 5th faction who had retreated from the graveyard entered this manor. This was one of their secret bases in the Jewel Kingdom. The main target of the 3 kingdoms was the Flame Kingdom, so they easily escaped from the 3 kingdoms. Use this to increase your strength as soon as possible, the thrice metamorphosed regent calmly said before entering one of the training rooms. After entering the training room, he took off the mask on his face. He had the face of a middle-aged man, and his eyes were filled with vicissitudes. With a wave of his hand, the rune puppet that he obtained in the tomb appeared in the training room, occupying more than half of the originally spacious training room. He walked up to the rune puppet and sat down cross-legged. His consciousness established a connection with an extremely special pattern that was constantly changing in his mind. This was an imprint of the law. It was made up of tens of thousands of moving lines. It was even more complicated than the imprint of the law of frenzy that Gray had cultivated. As he triggered this imprint, his blood power was quickly consumed. The shadow of the imprint of the law appeared behind him, and wisps of strange white gas floated out of the rune puppet and merged into his body. As the wisps of white gas gathered, his body seemed to have broken some kind of shackle, and his aura became stronger and stronger. Soon, he went from a thrice metamorphosed regent early stage to a thrice metamorphosed regent mid stage, and then to a thrice metamorphosed regent late stage. Finally, his aura reached the peak of a thrice metamorphosed regent. In a short period of time, his strength went from a thrice metamorphosed regent early stage to a thrice metamorphosed regent peak stage. During the process, he didn't use any magic potions to help him cultivate. His strength had reached the peak of a thrice metamorphosed regent. The white gas that floated out of the ruined puppet was gone, and the shadow of the law behind him slowly disappeared. His blood power was greatly depleted, and the middle-aged man retreated, slightly exhausted. It's a pity that I didn't get that gold weapon. Otherwise, I would have been able to reach the magic light level. The middle-aged man felt a little regretful. He stood up and walked out of the training room. The aura on his body was surging. At this time, his opponent's realm was comparable to Blair Blaze's. Coupled with his strong defense, even Blair Blaze was no match for him. Just as the middle-aged man stood up and walked out of the training room, in the other 3 training rooms in the manor, the woman with the beauty mark at the corner of her mouth and 2 other people also walked out of their rooms. The aura on their bodies was stronger than before. The woman with the beauty mark at the corner of her mouth and the other person had reached a thrice metamorphosed regent. Judging from the strength of the aura, the last person had reached a thrice metamorphosed regent. Chapter 555. A day later, in the forest at the edge of the Flame Kingdom. Under the pursuit of the 3 kingdoms, the Flame Kingdom had successfully escaped back to the Flame Kingdom. There were more than 30 people who went to the Jewel Kingdom this time, but only a dozen or so had returned. Most of them were injured and looked miserable. Although Blair Flame had successfully escaped, he was also heavily injured under the siege of Tefuni and the other 2. His hands, abdomen, and back were all severely injured. Although he had taken a high-grade healing potion, it was not something that could be healed in a short time. "Where's Niklos? Why don't I see him?" He looked around at the people present, and his heart could not help but thump as he asked. Silence. After a moment of silence, a king-level powerhouse said in a low voice, "When I escaped, I saw him being chased by Grey Fergus." Being chased by Grey Fergus, could it be? Hearing this, the hearts of the dozen or so people could not help but sink. According to their previous agreement, they would meet here after escaping. But now, Niklos Blaze had not appeared. They could already imagine the outcome. "Grey Fergus, you deserve to die." Knowing that Niklos Blaze was most likely dead, Blair Flame's eyes were filled with cold, murderous intent. Niklos Blaze was a genius of the royal family who was even more talented than him. According to his estimation, Niklos Blaze might have a slight chance of breaking through the bottleneck of the king level and achieving magic light. It could be said that Niklos Blaze was the hope of the royal family of the Flame Kingdom. And such an outstanding genius had probably died at the hands of Grey Fergus. He could no longer suppress the murderous intent in his heart. The strong murderous intent made the people around him subconsciously take a few steps back. "Sir Blair, what should we do next? The 3 kingdoms now have a gold-grade weapon. They will definitely not let the Flame Kingdom go." A king-level powerhouse said worriedly. His words caused everyone to worry. A gold-tier weapon had already seriously affected the balance between the Flame Kingdom and the other 3 kingdoms. If things went wrong, the Flame Kingdom might even be destroyed. Have all the core members of the families retreat to the capital. With the capital's defenses, even if they have gold-grade weapons, they won't be able to break through in a short period of time. Blair Blaze said in a deep voice. The capital of the Flame Kingdom was built on the foundation of a city built during the Empire period. The runic mechanisms of the Empire period were still preserved within the city. After being repaired, even a magic light tier powerhouse would find it difficult to break through in a short period of time. But holding up in the royal capital isn't a solution. Even with the royal capital's defenses, there will be a day when they break through. Some of the king-level experts frowned. "Don't worry too much. I obtained some things in the tomb that might help me break through to the magic light rank. If I can break through to the magic light rank, the Flame Kingdom's crisis will be reduced. At that time, it will be time for us to counterattack the 3 kingdoms." Blair Blaze glanced at everyone present and said to boost their morale, "Break through to the magic light rank? That's great." Hearing this news, the surrounding people couldn't help but be shocked. A trace of anticipation appeared on their faces. The reason why the 3 kingdoms were able to display such great strength was because of a gold-grade weapon. It wasn't the strength of the 3 kingdoms themselves. If Blair could break through to the magic light rank, the three kingdoms with their gold-grade weapons wouldn't be a match for him. At that time, unifying the four kingdoms wouldn't be impossible. 3 days later, the allied forces of the three kingdoms, including Grey, entered the Flame Kingdom. This time, the ones entering the Flame Kingdom were all experts of the three kingdoms. The weakest among them was at the Desolation rank. I never thought I would have the chance to set foot on this land. After entering the Flame Kingdom and looking at the Flame Kingdom's land, Grey couldn't help but sigh. With his relationship with the Flame Kingdom, under normal circumstances, it was almost destined that he wouldn't be able to set foot on the Flame Kingdom's land. If he appeared on the Flame Kingdom's land, he would definitely be hunted down by the Flame Kingdom. He never thought that he would one day have the chance to set foot on the Flame Kingdom's land. The Flame Kingdom's temperature is indeed higher than our three kingdoms. Feeling the temperature, Grey found that the temperature had obviously increased. If the Purple Moon, Scarlet, and Gem Kingdom's temperatures were on the cold side, then the Flame Kingdom's temperature was on the hot side. What a great place! Francis sighed. Because of the strong photosynthesis, the Flame Kingdom's grain production was very high. Some areas could even achieve 2 seasons of sowing in a year. The rich grain production brought a large amount of grain to the Flame Kingdom. The large amount of grain provided for more nobles and more soldiers. This was also the reason why the Flame Kingdom had the confidence to wage war against the three kingdoms every few years. The group quickly went deeper into the Flame Kingdom. After an hour, a huge city with a population of hundreds of thousands appeared in front of them. Based on the size of the city, it should be a count's city. Jennifer Austin, a thrice-transformed king of the Jewel Kingdom, said as she looked at the city from afar. We need to check if the nobles of this city are still in the city. Diphony Violet said. Indeed, we need to check it out. The three of you go and take a look. Ran and Scarlet nodded and then instructed the 3 desolate blood warriors. Yes, sir. The 3 desolate blood warriors replied and quickly left. They were not too worried about their own safety. A count city was more than enough for them to deal with. Half an hour later, the 3 desolate blood warriors returned unscathed. A middle-aged, desolate blood warrior said, Sir, the nobles in the city are counts. However, they have already left the city. According to our investigation, they had received orders from the royal family of the Flame Kingdom 2 days ago and retreated into the capital of the Flame Kingdom. Retreated into the capital of the Flame Kingdom? Seems like the Flame Kingdom wants to use the capital's defense to deal with the 3 kingdoms. Jennifer Austin said calmly, That's good too. As long as we break into the capital of the Flame Kingdom, the entire Flame Kingdom will be under our control. Then, let's go directly to the capital of the Flame Kingdom. Diphony Violet said. The group hurried on their way. The weakest among them was at the desolate level. Their speed was extremely fast. After a day, they had already arrived at a place that was only 100 miles away from the capital of the Flame Kingdom. In front of them, a huge lake appeared. It extended so far that they could not see the end. It did not look like a lake, but more like a sea. What huge lake! Seeing this lake, Grey sighed slightly. This was the largest lake he had ever seen in both his previous and current lives. This should be the largest lake in the Flame Kingdom, the Emerald Lake. Sophia said, Rumor has it that there are magic light level blood fiends in the depths of this lake. I wonder if it's true? Francis said as he looked at the lake. I don't know if there are magic light level blood fiends, but I'm afraid there are king level water type blood fiends. Grey thought for a while and said, It was rumored that there were magic light level blood fiends in the depths of the endless ice fields. However, the last time he and Barnett Naeem went to the depths of the endless ice fields, they even saw the world barrier at the edge of the endless ice fields. However, they still did not encounter any magic light level blood fiends. He had a guess that the magic light level blood fiends might have disappeared along with the Empire 1,000 years ago. And the one who destroyed the magic light level blood fiends might have been the force that destroyed the Empire. The other party should not have allowed the existence of magic light level battle power. After a short rest, the group continued on their way. After more than an hour, A huge and majestic city appeared in front of them. This was a circular city. It was circular in shape and sat on a huge plain. This city was huge enough to accommodate millions of people. The walls of the city were golden. Looking from afar, the golden light was brilliant and incomparably gorgeous. And inside the city, there were many domed buildings. The tops of these domed buildings were all painted gold without exception, like burning golden torches. And at this moment, in the sky above this huge city, a faint transparent barrier covered the city like a pot lid, shrouding the city within. Occasionally, birds would fly into the city and crash into the transparent barrier. Immediately, they would burst into flames and turn into ashes. This was the capital of the Flame Kingdom. Chapter 556. There were very few pedestrians on the streets of the Flame Kingdom's imperial capital. Occasionally, there would be pedestrians walking in a hurry, their faces filled with panic. The entire imperial capital was shrouded in an oppressive atmosphere. Panic was spreading, as if the end of the world was coming. Inside the exquisite houses in the city, important members of the noble families from all over the kingdom all had expressions of melancholy and anger. The Flame Kingdom was publicly acknowledged as the strongest kingdom among the four great kingdoms. They had suppressed the Purple Moon, Scarlet, and Gem kingdoms to the point that they had no choice but to form an alliance. They had always been proud of this. However, such a powerful kingdom had now been forced to defend their imperial capital. In their eyes, this was an absolute humiliation. They were worried about the kingdom's future, and they were angry at the three kingdoms that were about to attack. The Purple Moon, Scarlet, and Gem kingdoms are attacking. Suddenly, a piece of news spread throughout the Flame Kingdom's imperial capital. Those who heard the news all turned pale. Some people had panic on their faces, while others didn't. However, their trembling bodies revealed their current state of panic. Do you think the imperial capital will be breached? Panic spread throughout the entire royal capital. Some of the noble disciples asked worriedly, their faces slightly pale. No, the imperial capital definitely won't be breached. The three kingdoms definitely won't be able to break through the defenses of the imperial capital. A noble child said decisively. However, the slight tremor in his voice revealed that he didn't have much confidence. The strength of the defensive barrier of the Flame Kingdom's imperial capital wasn't something that an ordinary noble child like him could know. Naturally, he had no way of knowing if the three kingdoms could break through the defensive barrier. Gray's group arrived outside the gates of the Flame Kingdom's imperial capital. I heard that the Flame Kingdom's imperial capital was built on the foundations of the cities of the Empire. Is this true? Gray asked Sophia as he sized up the enormous imperial capital. It is indeed built on the foundations of the Empire's cities. In fact, the imperial capitals of the four kingdoms were all built on the foundations of the cities left behind during the Empire's era. Sophia, who was dressed in purple, valiant and formidable, nodded. The defensive barrier's defenses will probably be extremely strong. Gray raised his eyebrows. Gray greatly admired the runic technology of the Empire. Since the King's City was a city from the Empire, then the defensive barrier was very likely created by the runic matrices of the Empire. Its defensive strength would definitely be extremely strong. The defensive barrier should have been created by the defensive runic array during the Empire, but I don't know how much of the defensive runic array's power it can exert. Let me test the strength of the defensive barrier. Diphony Violet looked at the transparent barrier in front of him and said. A gun with black patterns appeared in his hand. Under the infusion of his blood power, a large amount of purple flames gathered at the tip of the spear. Then, a huge purple blood beast appeared and rushed out, attacking the defensive barrier in front of it. Rumble! With a loud bang, the purple flames hit the defensive barrier. But in the next moment, the golden flames on the defensive barrier bloomed, and the purple flames were instantly extinguished. During the process, the defensive barrier did not even have the slightest ripple. It didn't even cause a ripple. Seeing the effect of Diphony Violet's attack, Gray was slightly surprised. Even if he didn't use his gold weapon, as a thrice metamorphosis king-class powerhouse. Tefuni Violet's attack was as powerful as a thrice metamorphosis king-class powerhouse. However, such an attack couldn't even shake the defensive barrier. That was a bit exaggerated. The defensive barrier is on top of the Purple Moon Kingdom's defensive barrier. Francis's expression was also slightly serious. Try using a gold weapon. Jennifer Austin, a thrice metamorphosis king-tier powerhouse of the Jewel Kingdom, said. Tefuni Violet nodded and put away his black engraved spear. Instead, he took out a golden saber that looked like it was made of gold. After discussion, this gold weapon would be kept by the 3 royal families for a period of 10 years. The royal family of the Purple Moon Kingdom would be the first to keep it. Whoosh! As Tefuni Violet's blood power was infused into the battle sword, a huge purple flame blood beast appeared. It was several times larger than the previous purple flame blood beast and attacked the defensive barrier of the Flame Kingdom. Boom! A louder sound than the previous one rang out. The purple flame spread over a large area of the defensive barrier, and the translucent barrier rippled. However, although the translucent barrier rippled, it did not break. The golden flame burned on the surface of the barrier and quickly extinguished the purple flame. An attack with a gold weapon could only cause a ripple. This defensive barrier should be very well preserved. It can at least exert 90% of its defense. Seeing the effect of this attack, Tefuni Violet frowned slightly. Let's try it together. Lynn and Scarlet glanced at everyone present and said. Everyone nodded and launched their own attacks at the same time. Whoosh! Crackle! Whoosh! In an instant, a purple flame beast, a crimson lightning pillar, a huge yellow light blade, and a black fog vortex. More than 100 attacks attacked the defensive barrier at the same time. Rumble, rumble, rumble. Terrifying explosions continued to ring out. Under the joint attack of more than 100 people, especially more than 10 king-tier powerhouses, the defensive barrier rippled violently. However, in the end, the defensive barrier withstood the attacks. There's hope. Continue. Seeing the violent ripples on the defensive barrier, Gray and the others could not help but have their eyes light up. Rumble, rumble, rumble. Gray and the others continued to attack, but after half an hour, half of their blood force had been depleted. Yet, they were still unable to break through the defensive barrier. Gray and the others could only stop. They had to maintain half of their blood force. Otherwise, they would be easily attacked by the Flame Kingdom. Not good. It's blocked. When Gray and the others attacked the defensive barrier for the first time, everyone in the Flame Kingdom's Imperial City looked at the defensive barrier. Seeing the defensive barrier ripple violently under the attacks, everyone's heart skipped a beat. Fortunately, although the defensive barrier rippled violently, it was not broken. In the Flame Kingdom's palace, the upper echelons of the royal family gathered in the hall. Their expressions were not as relaxed as the other nobles. Under such a high-intensity attack, the rune lines were likely to be damaged. They had people pay close attention to the runic array. They were now waiting for the people who were paying attention to report back. At this moment, a middle-aged man quickly ran in. Seeing this middle-aged man, Blair Blaze hurriedly asked, "How is it? Is there any damage to the rune lines?" "There are 30 areas of damage," the middle-aged man said with a serious expression. "There are actually 30 areas of damage." Hearing this news, everyone in the hall could not help but feel their hearts sink. The rune lines were damaged. This was the worst news because as the rune lines were damaged, the defensive barrier's strength would slowly decrease. "Quickly send a rune master to repair it," Blair Blaze ordered. Outside the Flame Kingdom's Imperial City. What a strong defensive barrier. Gray and the others, who had stopped attacking, could not help but frown. Under their continuous attacks, although the defensive barrier rippled violently, they were still unable to break through it. This defensive barrier is too strong. With our battle strength, we can't break through it at all. A king-level expert sighed. The defensive barrier is indeed very strong. However, according to my estimation, under such a powerful attack, the rune lines of the Flame Kingdom's Imperial City should be damaged. A few more rounds of such attacks should be able to break the barrier of the Flame Kingdom's Imperial City. A king-level expert who is a rune master judged. That's useless. We need to rest and recover our blood energy. Using this time, the Flame Kingdom has enough time to repair the damaged runic array. A king-level expert shook his head. What do you do next? A bald king-level expert asked. Since we can't break through the defensive barrier, we might as well trap them in the Imperial City and block their food sources. A middle-aged king-level expert suggested. It's not very useful. According to the information from our spies, the Flame Kingdom had already stockpiled a large amount of food before this. It's enough for millions of people in the Imperial City to eat for several years. A king-level expert shook his head. The Flame Kingdom had already considered this point and stockpiled a large amount of food. Besieging the Flame Kingdom's Imperial City and cutting off their supplies was simply unnecessary. Lord Iphone, I have a suggestion that should be able to break through the defensive barrier. At this moment, Francis walked towards Diphone Violet and said, Chapter 557. What suggestion? Diphone Violet asked curiously. The reason why we can't break the defensive barrier is because it's too strong. Our combined strength isn't enough. We just need to gather a group of people and work together. We should be able to break the barrier. Francis said, but we've already mobilized all the manpower we can. Lennon Scarlet said, this time, in order to deal with the Flame Kingdom, the three kingdoms could be said to have turned out in full force. Except for some places that needed to be guarded, all the desolate level and above were mobilized. It doesn't have to be desolate level. Barbarian or even berserk level is fine as long as there are enough of them. Francis said, this method is feasible. Inform the kingdoms and let them mobilize their barbarian and berserk level experts. Jennifer Austin agreed. The order to gather barbarian and berserk level experts had already been sent to the kingdoms. It should take a week for them to arrive at the capital of the Flame Kingdom. After all, there were too many people and berserk level expert speed was limited. More than 100 people from the three kingdoms set up tents outside the capital, waiting for reinforcements to arrive. Back in his tent, Gray called out in his mind through the invisible spiritual connection he got from his resurrection ability. Bart. In the Flame Kingdom, he had planted a spy. It was the person who went to the Storm Mercenary group and was resurrected by him. In the past year, he could get news about the Flame Kingdom from time to time through the Storm Mercenary group. Lord Gray. Soon, a voice sounded in Gray's mind. He got a response. This kind of spiritual communication couldn't be too far away. If it was too far away, he could only sense the other party's general location. Other than that, he couldn't get any more information. The other party was ready to contact him just now, but at that time, he was attacking the defensive barrier of the Flame Kingdom's capital and couldn't be distracted, so he cut off the connection. Now that he had time, he was ready to ask the other party the reason for contacting him. Why did you contact me just now? Gray asked. Lord Gray, I got a very important news. Bart's voice was filled with urgency. What news? Gray was puzzled. What kind of news could make the other party so anxious? In the tomb, Blair Blaze obtained a potion specifically used to break through the bottleneck of magic light. He intends to use this potion to break through to magic light. Bart said hurriedly, a potion specifically used to break through the bottleneck of magic light? Are you planning to use this potion to break through to magic light? Gray was shocked. This news was like a sudden clap of thunder. One shouldn't look at how the three kingdoms held the absolute advantage and forced the Flame Kingdom to hole up in the royal capital, relying on the royal capital's defenses to struggle at death's door. However, if Blair Blaze really broke through to the magic light tier, the tables would turn. The power of a magic light tier was not something that could be matched by a gold tier weapon. Is the news reliable? Gray asked hurriedly. It came from a king-level warrior of the royal family. The news should be reliable. Bart replied, continue to pay attention to this matter. Report to me immediately if there are any developments. After ending the call with Bart, Gray fell into deep thought. He felt that the possibility of this news was very high. Previously, in the ruins of the Empire, a potion that could help one break through to the king level was discovered. Now, a potion that could help one break through to the magic light tier was not impossible. How should I inform the three kingdoms of this news? Gray fell into a dilemma. After learning such important news, he was distressed about how to pass this news to the three kingdoms. His relationship with Bart, as well as his special resurrection ability, definitely could not be exposed. Being able to resurrect the dead and have the dead completely under his control. If such an ability was discovered, it would definitely arouse fear and hostility from the people around him. However, if he did not inform the three kingdoms of this news, it was very likely that there would be extremely serious consequences. If Blair Blaze really used the potion to break through to the magic light tier, the unprepared three kingdoms would definitely suffer heavy losses. I'll keep it a secret for now. After careful consideration, Gray finally decided not to say anything for the time being. In the previous battle, Blair Blaze had suffered heavy injuries under the siege of Dyphony Violet and the other two. It could be said that he had suffered heavy injuries. Based on his current physical condition, he definitely could not consume this potion. If his body was not in peak condition, it could very well result in additional injuries on top of his injuries. In another week, the reinforcements from the three kingdoms would arrive. They should be able to break through the barrier of the Flame Kingdom's capital and invade the Flame Kingdom before the other party consumed the potion. Can he really become the first person in 1,000 years to break through to the magic light tier? Moreover, regarding whether the other party could use the potion to break through to the magic light tier, Gray was still skeptical. According to his conjecture, in this current world, due to that gigantic runic matrix, some sort of rule had been created that restricted the creation of magic light tier existences. This was also the reason why Blair Blaze had not been able to break through even though he was at the peak of his third metamorphosis. Even if Blair Blaze possessed a potion that could allow him to break through to the magic light tier, if he consumed it in this world, it was very likely that he would be suppressed by the rule and be unable to break through. The next morning, suddenly, in one of the tents, the unique aura of a king tier expert spread out. Following that, the tent turned to ashes under the purple flames, and a giant purple beast more than 10 meters long appeared. The giant beast's body was covered in purple scales. Its limbs were long and slender, and its head was pointed. There were many mysterious black patterns on its body. At this moment, the giant purple beast's body was wrapped in purple flames. It was these purple flames that had turned the tent to ashes. What's going on? Who's releasing their aura? Feeling the aura, everyone could not help but rush out of their tents and look in the direction of the aura. The Purple Flame King Beast. No, it's the phantom of the Purple Flame King Beast caused by the blood technique. Gray was also among these people. He looked at the Purple Flame King Beast and raised his eyebrows slightly. To be able to release such a strong aura, the person who released it was undoubtedly a King tier expert. However, he did not know which King tier expert was cultivating and had caused such a huge commotion. Because there were desolate blood warriors in the camp, when kings cultivated, they would purposely suppress their aura to prevent it from spreading. This direction is Francis's tent. Francis has become a King tier expert. Gray's expression was one of shock, followed by confusion. No, from the power of Francis's attack yesterday, he should still be some distance away from becoming a King tier expert. Yesterday, when he had attacked the defensive barrier of the Flame Kingdom, Francis had been right next to him. He could roughly sense that Francis's attack was still some distance away from becoming a King tier expert. It's because of the Blood Dragon potion. Yesterday, he told me that he was going to take the Blood Dragon potion. Just then, a crisp female voice rang in Gray's ears, accompanied by a delicate fragrance. Gray turned his head and saw Sophia and Hylia walking over. Because they had to guard against the Flame Kingdom's surprise attack, both of them were dressed in battle gear. Under the contrast of their battle gear, their waists and legs were even more slender. I didn't expect the Blood Dragon potion to be so effective. Looks like I should find time to take it. Gray nodded slightly at the two, then sighed. To be able to help Francis, who was still some distance away from becoming a King tier expert, the Blood Dragon potion's efficacy was conservatively estimated to be several times that of the Purple Moon potion. After a good while, the phantom of the purple flame king beast that was surrounded by flames dissipated. From within, Francis's figure was revealed. He was covered in sweat and looked quite tired. However, there was a slight aura that could not be suppressed, showing that he was now a king-tier warrior. Congratulations. After waiting for him to change tints and wash up, Gray, Sophia, and the others went up to congratulate him. Thank you. Francis was in an extremely good mood. After thanking them one by one, he looked at Gray. When do you plan to become a king-tier expert? Ahem. Gray was choked by this sudden question and smiled bitterly. It's not that easy to reach the king tier. It's hard for others, but easy for you. Francis shook his head. You think too highly of me. Gray smiled bitterly again. Although he was now at the 3rd level of the desolate tier, it had only been a little over 2 months. Even at his current speed, it would take him at least a year to reach the king tier. 2 days later, Gray left the camp in the morning and found a forest several miles away from the camp to take the blood dragon potion. Gray did not know how powerful the blood dragon potion was. In order to avoid making too much noise like Francis, he chose to take it far away from the camp. With a wave of his hand, he released all the targets of his corpse control ability. They were the King Claw Beast, the Demonic Sound King Beast, the Underage King Kong King Beast, and Stanley Grinnin. After giving the order to stay alert, Gray took out the blood dragon potion. After uncorking the potion, a strong medicinal fragrance wafted into Gray's nose. At the same time, there was a hint of blood. The blood dragon potion was a blood-red potion. According to the records that Gray had read in Ferland's potion refining notes, the refining of this magic potion required the blood of a magic light level dragon beast, Crimson Dragon, as the main ingredient, as well as many precious herbs. Such a potion could be said to be extremely precious. Even if the potion formula was given to the current top potion master in the continent, he would not be able to refine it. This was because Crimson Dragons could not be found in the current continent. Of course, even if traces of Crimson Dragons were found, no forces had the ability to hunt them down. Even the royal family of the Purple Moon Kingdom, who now possess gold-tier weapons, could not do so. Gulp. Gray drank the blood dragon potion in one gulp. An intense burning sensation suddenly rose from his stomach. It was as if he had swallowed magma. It was as if magma flowed from his stomach to his blood vessels and throughout his body. The temperature of his body was enough to fry an egg. He felt as if his entire body was burning. Chapter 558. The scorching heat spread throughout Gray's body. Gray felt as if he was bathed in lava. His skin was crimson red, and the blood vessels all over his body were clearly visible. The powerful medicine was causing drastic changes in his body. Under the effects of the blood dragon medicine, his muscles and tissues became denser. His physical fitness was rapidly improving, and the blood force vortex in his heart was rapidly expanding. His level was rapidly increasing. He had only reached the 3rd level of the desolate level for 2 months. He was only at the beginning stage of the 3rd level of the desolate level. However, he soon reached the middle stage of the 3rd level of the desolate level. If he were to cultivate the blood technique now, he should be able to complete the 2nd cultivation method of the 4th round of cultivation. However, his improvement did not stop there. The effects of the blood dragon medicine did not end there. After reaching the middle stage of the 3rd level of the desolate level, his level was still rapidly increasing. Soon, he reached the late stage of the 3rd level of the desolate level. This rate of improvement had already surpassed the rate of improvement that Francis had experienced when he took the blood dragon medicine a few days ago. With the 2nd metamorphosis, his body was constantly thirsting for nourishment. He would absorb any effective ingredients that could help him improve his strength without any waste. As a result, the effects of one portion of the medicine that he took might be comparable to that of others who took 2 or even 3 portions. After reaching the late stage of the 3rd level of the king level, Gray's improvement did not stop there. He was still improving. Finally, he reached the peak of the 3rd level of the desolate level. To the outside world, the 4th cultivation method of the 4th round of cultivation was close to completion, and he had reached a bottleneck. At this point, Gray's improvement in his level stopped. However, this did not mean that the changes in Gray's body had stopped. there was still a portion of the blood dragon medicine's effect left. Under this effect, Gray's body was undergoing microscopic changes. Originally, although he had the blood beast ability and bloodline, this bloodline was only attached to his body. It had not completely merged with his genes. Now, the bloodline was merging with his genes and becoming a part of his genes. Simply put, if he left behind descendants before the merging, they would not be able to inherit any of the blood beast ability. After the fusion, there was a possibility that his descendants would inherit his bloodline and possess his blood beast abilities. The benefits of this kind of bloodline fusion were not limited to this. After the bloodline was completely fused, the lifespan of the body would be greatly increased. It would jump from the original 100 years to 300 years, increasing one's lifespan by 3 times. The fusion of bloodline and hereditary genes was a microscopic change that was difficult to detect. To the outside world, Gray's improvement seemed to have stopped. However, even if it was a change on a microscopic level, as long as it accumulated enough, it was enough to trigger a macroscopic change. Finally, at some point, the microscopic change triggered a macroscopic change, and Gray's body changed. Ka. All the bones in Gray's body creaked, and the strength of his body suddenly soared. It was not a gradual increase, but a huge increase in strength in an instant. In a very short period of time, his strength had increased by a large margin. As his body increased in strength, the blood force vortex in his heart suddenly spun at an even faster speed. Its volume increased rapidly, and the pressure in the center increased. Then, a drop of bright liquid appeared in the center of the blood force vortex. It was only a drop of liquid, but it emitted an extremely dangerous aura that made one's heart palpitate. The blood force had liquefied. This was a sign of king level. In other words, at this moment, Gray had reached king level. Boom! A terrifying pressure spread from Gray's body. The blood force in Gray's body subconsciously circulated according to the totem of the Thunder King beast. A giant blue beast appeared unconsciously in Gray's mind. The giant blue beast looked like a lizard with horns on its head. Its scales were the size of an adult's palm, and purple lightning flashed around its body. It was like a divine beast that controlled lightning. After a long time, the lightning disappeared, and the divine beast that controlled lightning dissipated. At this moment, the effects of the blood dragon potion were completely exhausted. The burning sensation in Gray's body disappeared, and Gray woke up. What a powerful potion. One bottle actually raised my strength to king level. Feeling his current level, Gray's face was filled with amazement. One bottle of blood dragon potion had raised him from the early 3rd level of the desolate level to king level. It was a full level increase. The potion's effects were simply beyond his expectations. It stinks. An unpleasant stench emanated from his body. Gray looked at his body and saw that his skin was covered in pitch-black stains. Even his clothes were stained by the stains. Naturally, these were not stains from his body. At his current level, his body had an extremely strong immunity and recovery ability. How could there be so many impurities left in his body? In fact, these were broken cells that were constantly broken and reborn during the process of cells transforming and increasing their strength. He took off all his clothes and threw them away, revealing his well-proportioned but not bloated body. Gray took out a bathtub from his purple ring. He used his ice-type ability to create ice and his fire-type ability to heat it into warm water to wash himself. After changing the water, Gray washed his body and put on a clean set of moon-white aristocratic robes. His face was thin, his body was slender, and his hair was as black as ink. Wearing the white aristocratic robes, he had the temperament of a noble young master. However, unlike other noble young masters, he had a pair of extremely sharp eyes. A pair of eyes so sharp that others did not dare to look him in the eye. Being stared at by this pair of eyes was like being stared at by a tiger or a leopard. They could not help but subconsciously look away. According to my estimation, I will need at least another year or so to raise my strength to king level. I didn't expect that one bottle of blood dragon potion would save me a year. Feeling the explosive power that filled his body, Gray sighed slightly. He sighed at the strength of the blood dragon potion and the importance of resources. The cultivation of a blood warrior required a lot of talent, but resources were also indispensable. Only with both talent and resources could one improve at the fastest speed. He himself was the best example. In the early stages, he was severely lacking in cultivation resources. Even if he had the unique second metamorphosis state, his cultivation speed was only comparable to that of a member of the royal family of the Four Kingdoms. But in the later stages, he obtained a large amount of cultivation resources, and his cultivation speed increased at a terrifying rate. He quickly caught up with, or even surpassed the members of the royal family of the Four Kingdoms. This was the importance of cultivation resources. Furlent's alchemy notes must not be given to Master Tulu. The strength of the blood dragon potion made Gray even more afraid of giving Furlent's potion refining notes to Master Tulu. If possible, he hoped to use his resurrection ability to control a potion refining master and have him refine magic potions for the Fergus family. Of course, such a person must have a deep grudge against him or be an evil person. This was the most basic principle, and Gray did not intend to change it. Thinking of his current cultivation level, Gray could not help but think of another matter. Increasing my strength is a good thing, but I missed the opportunity to consume the blood of a blood beast in the middle stage of the desolation level. Fortunately, I can still make up for it. After many years of observation, Gray discovered that the number of times he could use the metamorphosis state was directly proportional to his body strength. The higher his body strength, the more times he could use the metamorphosis state. Of course, the strength of his body did not refer to his defense. It was the most fundamental quality of his body. To a certain extent, it was quite similar to his cultivation level. Because of this, even if he missed the opportunity to consume the blood, he could still make up for it later. Simply put, it could be accumulated. For example, because he had reached the middle stage of the desolation level once and reached the king level once, he could consume the blood twice, not once. How should I use the two metamorphoses? Gray could not help but think about how to use the two metamorphoses. Currently, among the blood he possessed that could be used for the metamorphosis, the demonic Sound King Beast blood was one type, the King Claw Beast blood was another type, the Gem King Beast blood was another type, and the poisonous magical dragon's blood was another type. Among them, the King Claw Beast blood could be immediately excluded. Among the blood he possessed, there was the King Claw King Beast blood. This was a blood beast whose strength, defense, and speed were at the peak of the same level. Its ability completely covered the abilities of the King Claw Beast. The poisonous magical dragon's blood would definitely take one of the metamorphoses. After reaching the king level, the first thing he needed to do was to increase the level of his blood. Otherwise, his strength would not be able to move forward at the beginning stage of the king level. After all, the highest blood he possessed was the king level. After reaching the king level, he had already developed this blood to the limit. The poisonous magical dragon would take one of the metamorphoses, and the remaining metamorphoses would need to be generated between the demonic Sound King Beast and the Gem King Beast. Gray could not help but carefully consider the abilities of these two blood beasts. The demonic Sound King Beast specialty was that its defense was at the peak of the same level. It also possessed the ability to attack with invisible sound waves that did not consume blood energy. The Gem King Beast specialty was that it could use gem petrification to increase its defense. After comparing the two, Gray immediately eliminated the demonic Sound King Beast. The demonic Sound King Beast defense was at the peak of the same level. Gray had already obtained it from the King Claw King Beast. As for the other party's invisible sound wave attack, although it was very special in that it could not be seen and did not consume blood energy, its power was limited against him, who possessed 3 mixed abilities. Moreover, because it was a physical ability, it should not be able to increase the power of his 3 mixed abilities. Although the Gem King Beast power was also limited, it had the ability to use gem petrification, which was an ability that Lu Li was rather optimistic about. If gem petrification could be combined with metallization, his own defense would increase tremendously. Moreover, the Gem King Beast's ability was an elemental Earth-type ability. It could be combined with the 3 mixed abilities to form a new mixed ability. The only thing that dissatisfied him was that it was only a king-level bloodline. Compared to his current level, the bloodline's level was a little low. I'll use the demonic Poison King Beast blood for the first metamorphosis. As for the second metamorphosis, I won't be in a hurry to use it. In the end, Gray decided on the blood for the first metamorphosis. As for the second metamorphosis, he did not decide on it and did not plan to use it immediately. The Gem King Beast bloodline level was too low. This made him very dissatisfied, so he decided not to use the second metamorphosis for the time being.